All right, everybody. We're excited to be back. Part 2. We have a full day today. I don't know about you, Jerry. It was like a race to go get a snack bar and refill my drink and back at the desk. So I'm excited.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
And find the next link.
Well, you're set. I'm glad that you're in here. Look, we want to get started. Just as a quick reminder to everybody, these are 20-minute sessions. They are back to back. And we're running all the way through for another 3 hours or so, 4 hours or so. No, 3 hours. We'll do another 3 hours or so. So anyway, stick with us. If you've got questions, any comments, anything like that, you can throw them in the chat that is there next to the live stream, and we will throw that up on the screen. You can ask questions as we go, or you can wait kind of towards the end. And with that, I'm going to welcome our next guest, Mr. Shaker.
Hello, Mr. Hoyt. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, man. Good afternoon. I tell you, what a great morning. I've really enjoyed all the morning sessions. So what you're doing here is fabulous. So appreciate the opportunity. And I know you just mentioned I got 20 minutes. I thought I had 3 hours. I thought I got the whole afternoon session. That's not the case?
You can keep talking. We'll hook you to the side. Well, give us the skinny. What's going on in your world? Who's Joe Shaker? What's Shaker Recruitment Marketing?
Yeah. Again, appreciate the time, Jerry. Good to see you. Coming off of our full disclosure that we've been working on over the last couple of weeks. I always want to disclose Jerry I'm the president of Shaker Recruitment Marketing, grandson of my grandfather, Joseph R. Shaker, founder of our company, but nephew of Jerry Crispin. And so I need to put that out for full disclosure because I am a big fan of CXR, but we are family related as well. I'd like to share a little bit about Shaker. I don't have slides. Want to make this obviously very conversational. Definitely open on taking questions from the group or questions from obviously, of course, you, Chris, or Jerry, and have a nice little dialogue. But the opportunity to share with the group, Shaker Advertising, full service recruitment marketing company. We've been in business for over 74 years, always helping organizations recruit and retain talent. Obviously, it has changed over the 7 decades that we've all been in the space, but that's all that we've done since the day our doors opened by my grandfather. We're very proud over 250 plus employees that make up the Shaker firm. About 100 or so are based in Chicago, where our corporate headquarters are, another 100 spread out all over the U.S. We also, in terms of our employees, we have hundreds of partners. And I will tell you, one of my favorite parts of my job is that I get to interact and work with some of our fabulous employees, but then have fabulous discussions and conversations with our partners, all of which, right, partners of every which one that presented this morning, partners that are also presenting this afternoon. And so I'm really in this unique position where I get to really learn and be educated by our employees and by our partners, and that's what keeps fueling the Shaker firm. We like to call ourselves to be an extension for our clients' HR, TA departments, and help them navigate through what is very difficult times, even in today's market in this war for talent. And how do we piece this all together and be that advisor for them and help them navigate so that they can not just win for this war for talent, but can continue to expand their own businesses and filling the jobs as fast as they possibly can, keeping costs down. But we also know, too, the key to recruiting is retention. And so then how do we bring in those right people and make sure that they stick and stay with the organizations for not just 30 days, 60 days, 1 year, 2 year, 3 or 5 years. We are a family business, as I mentioned, started by my grandfather, 3rd generation, now leading the organization. We also are a proud partner of One Agent. We're the U.S. representative of a global collaboration of 13 other like-minded independent agencies that span all over the globe. I have the privilege of right now chairing that group. And I also had the honor just this morning, 6 a.m., all 13 agencies of us, we all got together and we meet quarterly as CEOs and just really share best practices, what's going on in our markets, where we have concerns, where things are going well, what's working, what's not working. But it also allows us to not just help our clients domestically, but also we have many organizations that we work with on a global footprint. Our capabilities, like a typical full service recruitment advertising agency, kind of starts with figuring out who you are as a company. And so going into organizations and helping to uncover their employee value prop. Why should people sign up and work for you in an authentic way? And so we have all in-house capabilities to go in and do those in-depth research, as well as focus groups to get to the core of who you are as a company and how you should go to market. As a typical agency, all in-house creative capabilities. So bringing that MVP to life. So project managers, designers, and developers, helping kind of craft that story once obviously we get the employment value prop. It's not just creative anymore in terms of creating pretty billboards and ads. It's also creating content. So we have a whole team that sits within the creative team too that is pushing out that content both into the social sphere, but as well, so we'll talk a little bit about today. We're on your career site, which is clearly your new front door. So it's not just creating ads, but also creating content is one of our key areas and one of our key areas of expertise. Where do you go, right? So then definitely since the day we open, media buying. So clearly we're no longer running large newspaper ads and major metropolitan newspapers across the U.S., but figuring out, right, how do we manage those job boards, whether it be through straight up ad hoc purchases or through programmatic job distribution, but then also, right, how do you supplement job boards and going into areas such as TikTok and X and doing search engine marketing. So targeting both active and passive. And then I would argue, right, it doesn't stop there. And this is one of the things that has changed clearly over the decades is we're not just driving applications, but where are they going? And so looking at that front door of an organization and truly really helping advise companies to figure out what are the right solutions, what are the right partners. You just had a great session with one of our preferred partners, Paradox, and helping figuring out how are we going to help convert. And then how does this all come together? It's data and metrics in terms of measuring what's working, what's not working, both from a creative perspective, from a media perspective, but then also right from a candidate experience perspective. And taking that data and then making real-time adjustments. No longer are the days, set the plan January 1, come back and look at it December 31st and say, what tweaks do we want to make, right? On a daily basis, we're going in there and advising what creative adjustments do we need to make, what content strategy adjustments do we need to make, what's working well, let's do more of that, what media is performing well, reward those, what media is not, take them out of the mix, and then also taking making sure that the candidates that we're bringing through the funnel are converting, and we're getting not just cost per clicks down, but we're reducing the amount of applications that you needed. As Josh, I think, perfectly stated, it's a numbers game. And so if we can take it from 10 applications to make a hire down to 6 applications to make a hire and drive those cost per clicks down, that's how you bring your cost per hires down. So that's kind of just a little bit about us and kind of what we do in our unique approach in terms of how we're helping solve our clients' challenges.
Gotta love it. You give new meaning to the term in it for the long haul. When you think about 3 generations. So it's kind of interesting from that point of view.
We're set up, Jer, right, a little bit differently. Obviously we're not private equity backed. We're family owned, and yes, we're building this business for, not a 3-year or 5-year. It is for the long haul. And so we're looking at how do we build this business for another 70 years. So you're correct.
So Joe, I got to ask you, so you kind of sit, having it be it's been a family business for decades and decades and decades, and you've been involved since you were little. So you're kind of in the catbird seat with regards to recruitment marketing and, that entire landscape. Is there anything that you see right now as you kind of look out there and you talk to all of your customers and you talk to all of your partners? Is there one big pain point that you'd highlight to say, look, this doesn't have to be that painful? That's kind of part of those conversations with all of them. Is something you'd say, look, this doesn't need to hurt as much as it hurts?
Yeah, I think the one pain point that I think where people say you could never address the candidate experience before. People, especially for large companies, they're getting so many applications. We kept saying before, you got to get to them fast. You got to get to them efficiently. But when you have the likes for some organizations that are getting thousands of applications on a daily basis, that was a hard thing to accomplish. We all said Jerry, you started that trend, and Career Crossroads really did, and just delivering that better response. We knew we wanted to do it, but it was not possible from a technology perspective, and that's no longer the case, right? If you build in the right partners and you bring in the right solutions and you create the right content strategy, you can get to candidates in a very quick and economical way, and affordable way. And then what is proven, right, and we have numerous case studies to prove that when you do that, right, you're not just saving money, which you are, because like I said, you can reduce the amount of applications that ultimately you needed, but you're giving a better experience, right? And so those candidates, right, are, even if the ones that you disposition out, are going to be greatly appreciative of how they were treated, and are going to obviously go to the social networks, and it all comes back and pays forward.
Yeah, you can measure where we couldn't before, almost in real time, the impact you're having on the candidate from the candidate's perspective, so that you're able to align what it is you're doing to what they're experiencing. And I think increasingly, corporations are beginning to try and do that as part of the metrics that they look at.
Correct. The other thing too, I would say, right, and this is, we all know the importance of employer branding and EVP, but everyone's like, well, why is it so important? 60 years ago, 50 years ago, again, I wasn't doing it 60, 50 years ago, so I'm not going to tell you how old I am, but pretty close to it. Our job was to create really creative ads that just drove as many applications, right, as we possibly could, whether it be truthful or not. It's ultimately, right, we were false advertising. And the importance of an employer brand, and to do it the right way, is to get that message front and center on what it's like to work at this company, and be truthful about it. And again, that's something that some say is a very difficult task. It's time consuming. Yes, it is all that, but it is so important. And that to itself is becoming more easily accomplished just through even research tools to be able to get in there and find out what it's like to work at the company.
Yeah. And sorry, Jerry, this is a big question. Kind of cuts Jerry off in the visual there, but we'll take it off. The question comes in, Joe. It says, "Does your service offer ways to benchmark TA across the industry compared to our competitors, especially things like candidate experience, candidate fallout within the process?"
So we work with over 600 clients, and we get asked this question a lot. Can we benchmark data? Sure, right? You can put out information that says this is what other like retailers or other individuals in the sales or engineering or finance, et cetera. So there are benchmark data that we can go off of. Obviously, too, I agree with Chris. Recruitomics, Appcast does a great job putting out general benchmark data as well. But ultimately, your true benchmark should be yourself, because the brand of or company A is going to be completely different than company B. And I would also argue your candidate experience of company A is going to be completely different than company B. And so I can have two clients in the same industry. One has a 45-minute apply process and the other one has a 2-minute apply process. That same client can actually ask for a social security number and the other one cannot. That's going to change benchmarks. And so even though they might be in the same industry, it is not an apples comparison. So the important thing to set is that, and what we do is we will provide some guardrails, but ultimately what you're using yourself as that benchmark in time over time, month over month, quarter over quarter. How are we improving against yourself?
It's really a great point, because benchmarking is a critical process, but what you make of it it has to be in the context of the company that you're operating.
Correct.
So that's a critical piece to it. And peers obviously should be spending time learning from each other, but they need to do it with some critical thinking skills. And if they're not doing that, then they're just going to struggle and try to copy something that they think works, but may not work in their context.
Yep. Agreed.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're talking about my good is not your good, is not Jerry's good, right? And I think, and in the spirit of that, we have 5 minutes left, so I want to cover a couple of things. But let's sort of stay in the metrics shop, Joe. So recruitment marketing, right? Are there KPIs or key performance indicators that should be tracked to measure the success of recruitment marketing? Does Shaker have a set of recommended KPIs or rollouts there?
So I would say, let's look at it first from an employee branding perspective, right? Creativity, right? If we do that right, and you set the message accurately and authentically at the front end, right? That shouldn't drive more applications, as I mentioned earlier. It should drive less, and you should see an uptick in retention, because ultimately, right, we're driving those right fits. So when we talk about quality, right, it starts at the beginning in the creative process. And so when we go embark and take on an employee brand initiative, right, what you're going to start with upon that completion, and that's not something that happens overnight. It's a 6-month, it's a 12-month, it's an 18-month time frame. But we should have an uptick the organization should have on retention. When you're measuring media out of the gates, right, on a daily basis, we're looking at cost per click. But ultimately, right, how we are judging how media is performing is on cost per quality applicant. And our definition of a quality applicant is they've been moved to interview scheduled. If the interview is set, then ultimately the media, whether it be Indeed or whether it be X or whether it be Facebook or Google, they've done initial point their job of driving someone that, hey, the candidate says I want to move forward, and the recruiter or the knockout questions, the automation is saying that this is someone at least that should move to the interview schedule. So in real time, right, daily basis, let's get more of those people into those funnels. And then ultimately, right, we're looking to say, are those quality applications turning into hires? And that's where you're looking at that tech stack to making sure that we're not losing people in the funnel. And when you measure all three of those, we should not just have a reduction in the cost per hire, but also should reduce the amount of time it takes to fill, because we all know that a very, very important KPI in the process is time. And so the longer those jobs stay open, right, businesses are losing efficiencies and losing dollars. And so we're measuring not just cost per hire, but cost per efficiencies in terms of those openings. And then ultimately, as I said earlier, retention.
Yeah, I had a conversation recently with a TA leader. Joe was telling me, believe it or not, they had to write a case study to their C-suite to create a corporate career site. They didn't have one. They'd never had one, and they were literally having to fight for one to be built. So I guess my question, I'd love your perspective on the role maybe that company website plays within that RM or that recruitment marketing strategy as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, that website's your front door, right? And so imagine an organization not having a front door, how are you going to get in? And the other stat we always like to talk about is from LinkedIn, where 75% right now of individuals are going to research a company before they apply. And wouldn't you want to rather control that narrative? And there's no better place to control it, right, than on that career site. And so that's kind of key point, one of the key areas of where there has to be some major investment in creating an efficient process, but one where your story can come to life.
I love that. Any other big ahas or things folks should know about Shaker before we got about a minute and a half left? You want to leave folks with something to think about?
Hey, I think one thing hopefully people know about us and hear about us is we are extremely passionate about this industry, and we want to keep moving it forward. And so I would tell anyone that's listening, now or later, right, if you just want to get on the phone and have a conversation and we're as transparent as they come on what it's like about vendor A and vendor B, and how we can help bring us all together, we welcome to have those dialogues and those conversations.
Yeah, I will tell you, one of the things that I love about Shaker and what we hear about Shaker every time is just the level of integrity and transparency there. And I don't think you're around for 70 plus years and not have that be the case. So it's just great stuff.
Well, hey, we appreciate all Career Crossroads you and Jerry do too as well. There's no better industry than ours, and there's no better industry than all of what you do and what we do and all the partners that are coming through today. Helping people find jobs and helping companies grow, there's no better industry. So we're glad to play a part of it.
Yeah, good stuff. Well, Joe, thanks for giving us a little time today. We appreciate it.
Hey, thank you, Chris. Keep doing what you're doing. Thanks, Jerry.
Take care.
Peace.
All right. Man, I love when he comes by. And I also love our next guest. Let's bring her in. Maury, how are you?
Good. How you doing?
It's good to see you.
Yeah, you too. We've been emailing back and forth. Nice to see it. Put a face and a voice to it. Okay,
yeah. Well, look, I know we only have 20 minutes, so I want to let you jump right in because I could short talk with you all day. It'd be great. I know you've got a screen up and ready. You want me to just throw that up and you can jump right in?
Sure. Why not? We'll get to it, and we'll hopefully have some time. I'm going to be my. Is this going to go to start from beginning? Let me see if I do it from here. Did that switch? Are you seeing my full screen?
I see the presenter view. So you got the little slides down the left and the main slide.
That's not what I want to be doing.
We've had a couple folks do it that way too. Just depends on whatever you're more comfortable with. So while she's working on that, I just want to remind everybody we have the live chat going, so you can ask a question in the chat. If you've got one for Maury, we'll throw it up on the screen. And then we've got a QR code up in the top that if you scan that, it's going to take you out. There we go, Maury. And there you are. We're going to take you out. It'll take you out to actually the profile out on the marketplace, and that'll let you connect with Maury directly or anything that they've made available out there. So Maury, there you go. You're up and running.
Great. Thank you. So I'm going to take you through a case study of a client that's been using the SparcStart platform. So people can get a sense of where video gets used in the whole recruitment process and what difference it makes. But I always start out saying, think about how you got information in the last week, whether it was entertainment or politics or sports or fashion. Chris, you're probably not looking at fashion, I'll guess.
5 hours of cat video. That's where I'm at.
The reality is, we all look at video, right? What's the odds that you went and read an article or looked at paragraphs of text? But when you look at how employers are trying to attract and connect with candidates, they're using all text-based tools, whether it's job descriptions or their job boards or their career sites. They're still primarily text, emails, in-mails. It's all text-based. And that's amazing given that 84% of all internet traffic right now is video. There's such a mismatch going on here. We're all getting our information from video. It's how candidates want to learn. It's how candidates want to interact. And yet all the tools that are core tools for recruiting are all text-based. And we hear from, clients all the time that say, gee, we're not attracting the right people. We haven't differentiated our jobs. Candidates don't understand us. We get a lot of ghosting. We get a lot of fallout. That's because you're not connecting with candidates. And it's just too expensive to keep filling that leaky bucket. Whether candidates come in the beginning of the funnel and they drop out, they ghost you, they abandon the applications. There are all sorts of things going on that doesn't have to be that way. There's a much more efficient way to do it. And let me walk you through this case study of a client who came to us with exactly that. There are 3 products on the SparcStart platform: Spark, Amplify, and Empower. This particular client ended up using all 3. But she started out with Spark. And the issue she came to us originally with was, we're not attracting the right candidates. It's not about not having enough applications. It's people who apply to the job that don't understand it. It's people who apply to the job that don't begin to be qualified. People who aren't interested in it. We've just got tremendous fallout as we go through screens. So she started with Spark, which puts hiring manager video into the job description. So this video, it's short, it's only 20 seconds, and it's not a random employee testimonial. It's the person that you'd actually report to if you took the job. So you get a chance to meet your boss. And that makes a huge difference. And not only can we create a landing page for outbound, but we can put that video right on your career site. So, and we did this, and it doesn't matter what the career site is, who the career site vendor is. We'll give you 3 lines of code, and whenever there's a hiring manager video for a job, it automatically appears. So now all of the effort that you're doing to drive candidates to your career site results in more conversion to actual applicants, because people get to meet their boss. And that's just hugely different. Once you've seen the boss, once you've seen that person's face, once you've heard their voice, all of a sudden that job becomes real, right? You can read job descriptions forever and they become like wallpaper, and trying to remember which job is which is nearly impossible. But when particularly for this client, when she put hiring manager video there, candidates actually stopped and focused on the job and were able to differentiate them. And the results were really dramatic. She had an increase in conversion from visitors to the career site to applicants of 60%. So people came and didn't bounce off the career site in the numbers that they had been. But more importantly, she was getting qualified candidates. And a lot of that came from the fact that she had a better educated candidate. People spent at least twice as long on the page looking at the job. So the video is only 20, 25 seconds long. They're very short, but people were spending 100 and 250 seconds on the page. So if the video was at least a bit interesting, they slowed down and started to read, and they made a better decision to opt in and opt out. And so that increased the efficiency all the way through. It wasn't just more applications, it was more qualified applications. And also she had sourcers that were reaching out to passive candidates. When they reached out and included a Spark and used the clickbait of, click below to meet your boss, people were just curious. Who is this person who thinks they're going to be my boss? And they got clicked on 8 times as often. So more engagement all the way across the board. So these numbers were this did exactly what she needed to do. It differentiated the job. It attracted the right candidates. It got them to actually apply. It got passive people to respond. And so she was thrilled, to say the least, but said, I still need to raise the image of the organization as a whole. We have people who have an outdated understanding of who and what we are. They just don't understand our jobs. So that's when we went to Amplify. There was a real need to build the employer brand and just build the visibility in general. So Amplify is a platform to record employee-generated content of all kinds. There's an editing suite built right into it, and this is designed for non-video editors. This is designed for recruiters who are busy, who just want to add a logo, add a title, maybe add an image, to use a video and move on. Everything on the SparcStart platform is approved. You don't have to worry about rogue videos going out there or people making jokes that aren't appropriate, or proprietary data. Everything is approved before it's available for publishing. And with Amplify, all of the videos are on a dashboard ready for sharing, all the approved videos. So it's everything that was created on the platform, but also if you have videos that marketing created for you or your CEO gave a presentation, you can add those too. So that's what she did. She put all of her videos in one place and went to share it. And she had been doing it individually. Actually, she had a group within corporate comms that was making videos for her and doing a modest chargeback. But she was also trying to reach out to employees individually and ask them to record testimonials. She laid it out for us. It was 16 different steps and 8 different software packages. It was just sending people suggestions and guidelines and a link to upload the video and telling people they're ready for approval and sending a link to approve it and keeping track of comments. And it was a lot of work. Once she went to Amplify, what happened is that she, or more accurately, her team was able to focus on the value added pieces. Like, what content do we need? Who's the most credible person to deliver that? Is this video approved? And the platform did all of the other work. It notified approvers when a video was ready. It kept track of the comments. It kept track of what version they'd seen. It did all of that work so that the team could function on the real strategic and value-added information. And she created a really wonderful video library. Some of the examples, she obviously did employee testimonials and day in the life. She had her head of learning and development just take a message about, in your career, here are the things that you can expect. They did a video on interview tips, what to expect in our interviews. They got a guy in finance once a quarter. He did a real quick, here are financial highlights. And it was not an analyst call. He did it in layman's terms, sales are up in Europe and these products are doing well kind of thing. Somebody just talking to you and saying, here's what we're proud of and financially this way. Had somebody from their manufacturing arm talk about sustainability and some of the efforts there. Had team members do welcomes. So while people were going through reference checks and waiting to actually start, they got some videos welcoming to the team. And she did a bunch of onboarding with video, short, sort of showing people and telling people all the things they needed to do, how to set up their tech stack, all that kind of thing. So these were just some of the examples of the videos that were created. So over the first year, she created 67 different videos. And we used a really conservative cost of $2,000 per video. That's what her internal comms team was charging her back whenever they came out and filmed a video for her. Now, if you go out to a third-party production of professional production company, if you can get a video for $2,000, that's amazing. As we all know, those are usually $10,000 to $20,000 to bring in a professional crew to do that. So in the first year, she created 67 videos, and just using the $2,000 per video, she created a video library that had the value of $134,000. She did all of this with a piece of software that cost less than $50,000. So she immediately got almost a 3 times return in terms of the video library she had, but it got better. Then she had employer brand ambassadors that shared these videos. Some of them were recruiters, some of them were people in the business, that twice a month they shared a video, and they generally shared them on 2 platforms each, LinkedIn and TikTok or Facebook and whatever they used. And they had an average of 1,600 impressions per share. So she generated $411,000 worth of earned media value. If she'd gotten the same kind of exposure, had the same visibility out there, it would have cost $411,000. So again, this is the same less than $50,000 investment. She got back more than $500,000 in value in year 1. And now year 2, she's creating even more videos and building that video library. But anybody who's not doing this is just leaving money on the table. There's so much visibility you can build. And don't forget about the credibility of something coming from somebody in your network that you know, saying, hey, here's the latest video on sustainability at my company. We're really proud of this. Hey, here's how we're approaching L&D. The credibility that comes with having employees share video is worth way more than the $411,000. This is just the best investment you can make in building your employer brand. So that was all great. And she loved the efficiency and all of that and said, Maury, good stuff, but I wish I had this kind of efficiency for all my recruitment marketing assets, right? We've got all the videos in one place. People are sharing them. I've got all of that, but I don't have it. My people are still going into SharePoint. They go in there. They never come out. It's a disaster. So it's like the Indiana Jones Temple of Doom, at the end where you go into that warehouse and it's in there somewhere, but you're going to die before you ever find it. That's my mental vision of SharePoint. Like even I go in there and it never comes out. I'm happy to say SparkStart has our own Empower account right now. With Empower, you can upload any of your existing assets. That can be a blog site, it can be a microsite, it can be a landing page, it can be a guide, it can be any of the things that your recruiters want to put their hands on. Like everything in this platform, it's approved, so you're sure it's the latest version, you're sure it's brand appropriate, you're sure it's what you want people having. We've got a really nice search function in here, and I'll show you that real quickly. And it's one-click share. So you can share directly to social, you can share to anything in your CRM, you can share to an email directly to candidates. One click, and best of all, we measure the heck out of everything. So right now, if you're pulling assets off SharePoint, you have no idea if those assets are being used. You have no idea who's using them. You have no idea where they're being used. You have no idea what the results they're generating. With Empower, you've got all of that data. You've finally got some management data that you can go and say, okay, we invested in these assets. Here's what's really getting used. Here's what our recruiters are using to put in front of candidates. What do we need more of? Where are the holes? It really gives you the management tools that you need for all of this. So for this client, she, again, kind of laid out for us, this is what her assets sort of looked like. A bunch of stuff in SharePoint. Marketing had some stuff gated. We know recruiters are notorious for downloading stuff to their local computer, because they don't want to bother to look for it. I had somebody tell me once, yeah, I've got some benefits stuff. I'm not sure it's accurate, but it's probably close enough. I was like, no. There's no such thing as close enough when you're sharing benefits information. So it's all over the place. So what we've done with Empower is take all of that information, put it in one place, let the recruiters access it, share it to social, share it directly to candidates. So what I'm going to do with that is flip over, and I think I'm going to have to, how am I doing on time? I can't see my...
You're great. You got about 7-8 minutes left, yeah.
Girl's golden. Okay. Can you now see my screen, or did I just blow that?
No, you closed it. You can reshare it though.
Oh, sorry. Okay. I'm going to do entire screen. Why won't it let me? It won't let me share anything. Cancel that. Go to share. I'll do my Chrome tab. Do my window. Okay, I'll do that one. I'm not picky. Okay, now can you see my screen?
Yeah, looks great.
Okay, great. So this is Empower. I've just logged into our demo account just to give you a sense of what Empower can give you. We've got everything. We've got lots of analytics all the way through, but we've got some fun things like what's new. So if your employer brand team is creating new assets, all your recruiters know about it. You can keep track of how active your recruiters are. But the really fun part of this is the share piece, where you can see all your assets. We've set up a really nice share piece here where if you know what you're looking for, you can go in and just type it in and find it. If you only want to look at videos and images because you want to put something on social media, you're not caring about documents or links, you can do it that way. We've set up 2 levels of tags where the company can set up the tag so you have consistency. So we have some clients who set things up by part of the country, some who do it by operating company or division. There's a second level of tag where you can do it. Again, this is up to the client. It can be by function, it can be by location, whatever makes sense. But then we've got some open field tags so that you can make tags on the fly for special events. You're doing a SWE event at U Michigan. You can go ahead and make a tag for that. And then have all of your assets in one place. Right from one place, you can download them. You can put them in an email. You can embed them. You can share them directly to any of the social sites. You can copy them. If they're a document, you can print them. You can take a look at the analytics on here so you can see what's being used and exactly where they're being used. And I'll tell you, this is important for a reason that we don't talk about a lot. Any company that's global, that falls under GDPR. If you operate in Europe, you're part of GDPR. And there are 18 states now in the US who have passed data privacy laws. So if you have an employee who comes to you and says, I want you to take my image down, you are legally obligated to do that. And what we find is that most clients don't know where those images are, don't know, what videos employees are in or what documents they've put images of them in. And if they know that, they don't know where they've posted those things. So they have no ability to comply. So this becomes just a basic management tool where we keep track of all of the people who are in your videos so you can do that. But lots of other functions on this platform that we're really excited about. But let me stop there so I have time just for questions.
Yeah. Do you want me to take the screen off for you? Oh, never mind. You did it.
Love the way you've evolved in terms of organizing all of the pieces around it. I think it makes it a lot more usable in so many different ways. There's no question the importance of video, though, is growing as we speak.
Yeah. It's if you don't have video as a core tool, you're just not connecting with people. I mean, there's a reason why our images are on the screen, right? It makes it more personal. We can read each other's expressions. We can hear our tone that even really good writing can't capture. No one wants to read all the information that was passed this day. They want to see it. They want to hear it. So anybody who's on this, you're already a video junkie, whether you admit it or not. And to think that candidates aren't the same way, it's just a mismatch. And, if you've got inefficiencies, it's like going to a tennis match with a fishing pole and wondering why you're not winning. You got to have the right tool for the job.
The analogies are always my favorite. So, Maury, we have a question come in. It's from a LinkedIn user. It says, how is SparkStart, it's a fair question, how is SparkStart different from the iSIMS video studio?
Lots of reasons. SparkStart, first and foremost, is not an app-based system. So for an employee to record a video, they don't have to download an app. They don't have anything to configure. They don't need a username and password. From the platform, an email is sent out to the employee. In that email, there's a big button that says launch recorder, and the camera's going to open on their phone, their laptop, their tablet, whatever they're using. So with the SparkStart platform, you can record a 30-second video in 30 seconds. It really is that fast. You click launch recorder, you record your video, you can play it back, re-record it if you want. But we've done that really simply. The real magic of SparkStart is in our workflows. Anybody can go out and record a video, right? You can pick up your phone, you can self-record a video. There's nothing about that. But if you're an organization of 10,000 people or 50,000 people, you can't do it at scale. You need security, you need simplicity. And so we've done that. The other thing unique about SparkStart is we're the only platform that can match a hiring manager video to a specific job automatically. So you don't have to go and find the hiring manager and find the page on your career site and put it all in. That all happens automatically. So, and that makes a difference. There's a big difference between, just seeing a general employee testimonial and actually meeting your boss. Meeting your boss is huge. And
I love that line. Click here to meet the boss. I love the clickbait. I thought it was great. Well, Maury, I want to thank you so much. You crushed it. There's so many aspects, having done video management and marketing materials for that, so many things here I wish I had 10 years ago. And I just love the fact that you're one of the very few, if the only one, delivering all of this stuff sort of packaged up nicely and in an easy way to get to. And I think in a model that works for folks. So thank you for your time and for showing that off today.
Great. Thank you. Great to be with you guys. Thanks a lot for having me.
Thanks. We'll see you soon. All right, we are jumping in with Hirevue next. We'll bring these up. Hey, Dina, how are you?
Hello, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing quite well. We're going to pull up, let's pull up a QR code for you. There you go. We got that up on the screen. Anybody scans that, it's going to go directly to your profile. And Dina, you introduce yourself. You want me to put your screen up right away and you just jump right in?
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay, we can do that. There you go. Take us away.
Awesome. Well, hello, everybody. It is great to virtually meet you. Quick introduction, knowing that we have 20 minutes together here. My name is Dina Taylor. I am Chief Evangelist here at Hirevue. I've been with the business for 11 years, and part of what I am very, very excited to talk about today is not only a little bit about who Hirevue is, but truly about the evolution of our solutions and our technology and how we have partnered with our customers over the last several years to truly become who we are today, which is human potential intelligence. Many of you might have seen the comment that I had made on my LinkedIn profile yesterday as I was sort of sharing some excitement about this session today. But when I started at Hirevue, we had done all in about 150,000 video interviews.
Wow.
And today, Hirevue has done 70 million.
Wow.
So yeah. So very exciting sort of sign of who we have become and how we've partnered with our customers. But that's really what I'd like to talk about today is just who we are and what our technology is all about and share a couple of customer stories about some of the exciting things that we've done together.
Okay.
All right. Shall I jump in?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, let's jump in. So human potential intelligence. This is the fundamental foundation of who Hirevue is. And, there are a lot of different sort of buzzwords that are out in the space these days. We've all heard them, right? The skills economy and hiring for potential and making sure that we're using AI and AI-based platforms. So I thought to kind of start here and then unpack what this means and how we support our customers in general. The reality is at Hirevue, we have a solution for every job, at every organization in the world. And it is a far cry from the video interviewing solution that required us to ship webcams out several years ago. We've now truly evolved to a platform that is really robust and allows us to partner with 1,200 customers across the globe, 180 countries, number of languages, as we think about how to best deploy technology solutions in order to make sure that we are hiring for all of those jobs that are out there at all of those organizations. You know, as we think about how we partner with our customers and as we think about how we solve the problem statements that are out there today, we've really realized over the last couple of years, particularly post-COVID, kind of when everything changed and when everybody had to pivot really quickly, most organizations out there are stuck in this notion of rear view HR. And we all know it, right? We've all been in HR and talent acquisition for many years now. And if you think about it, the process that is followed kind of has stayed consistent over the years, right? A lot of reliance on resumes and CVs, a lot of reliance on job descriptions. And the reality is, if you take a resume, that isn't necessarily the best indicator of what a candidate has the potential to do. Resume is a great indicator of what somebody has done, but not necessarily what they can do going forward. In job descriptions, we haven't yet met a customer that's cracked the job description nut and code that's out there, because the reality is they aren't necessarily the best indicator of what's actually required for success. So we're kind of using two methods and methodologies in order to find good people to fill great roles. But the reality is we're using methods and processes that aren't the best indicators of what that looks like. So that kind of rear view HR component is really what we've been partnering with customers on to innovate and explore what new and what good could look like. And that really leads into the mandate that we believe talent and HR organizations and our customers itself are really leaning into. And this is all about Hirevue and how we support this mandate. So it's three things: science, which uncovers the potential by matching candidates to opportunities that fit those skills and not just are based on the past. AI, to support helping every candidate be seen and evaluated uniquely. And automation, making sure that we don't lose any of that good talent because we're taking a little too long in order to find that talent and make those hiring decisions. And the thing about this mandate and the thing about leaning into these different approaches and solutions is they're all super scalable. We run into customers who are like, you know what, we're not ready for AI yet. That's not something that's of interest for us right now, but gosh, that science to identify potential, that's really core and critical. Or maybe we're ready for some degree of AI, leaning more into automation. We'll start there and we'll kind of stair step into what a more robust AI machine could look like. But our ability to kind of flex and scale and partner with our customers based on their needs and their expectations has really empowered us to leverage those strong experiences and also support this new mandate of looking away from just that rear view HR and looking more toward what's to come and kind of a different or better way to do it. And here's what that looks like. We partner with our customers to take us from resumes and job descriptions over to skills and potential, thinking less about what you have done in the past and more toward what you can do in the future. Less on degree requirements and more on competencies and aptitudes. Oftentimes, folks don't even know what those competencies and aptitude requirements are. And so this is also a great opportunity to zoom out and better understand what good looks like at the organization so that we could map out what those job requirements are and conduct a more robust, scientifically backed analysis of needs and requirements to then make sure that we're hiring the right people for those skills. Really thinking about automation to focus on the future rather than the past. One of our customers is the head of talent acquisition at Carnival Cruise Lines, and he said, I'm expected to predict the unpredictable. And so if I can partner with an organization or a vendor that can help me predict the unpredictable, that solves such a big problem statement in my organization. And if you think about it, all talent professionals today are being asked to predict the unpredictable. How do you hire for a job that might not exist yet? And that's really what this is all about, is taking us away from that rear view HR and more toward what's to come. And that segues into, right, hiring not just for today, but hiring for the future. We have another customer who's saying, I don't want to go from high to hired. I want to go from hire to retire. And the reality is that's impossible to do unless you also think about building career paths for your talent as you hire them. Turnover is not just about quality talent, but it's also making sure that that quality talent that you hire has a different role to get promoted into and has a different career path within the business. Thinking about compliance in a way that also allows for some agility. Legislation changes every day. And how do we make sure that we build and scale processes and technology that lets us move with those compliant changes? And finally, thinking about a truly candidate first experience, less so on what the candidate goes through step by step throughout the process, kind of like that notion of you order a pizza and you know the status of your pizza before it arrives at your house. Now it's even more robust than that and focused more on candidate discovery, candidate engagement, in addition to that candidate experience. And so here's how we do that at Hirevue. We're really focused on uncovering talent potential, making sure that it's candidate centric, leaning into intelligent automation, all while ensuring this is a future-proof and scalable process. So I thought to start with a little bit of transformation from a process perspective. Again, we're all TA and HR professionals. This is kind of the process that we all know. And this is really the process that lends into that Hirevue HR that I was sharing at the beginning of the discussion. And so what you're looking at here is a pretty macro level process that you might see along the way. And this is generally the reason for your desire to kick off a transformation. There are a lot of touch points. There are a lot of steps in the process, both for the talent teams and for the candidates. What we do is partner with our customers to reimagine and transform this process, and then layer on technology to power the experience. And what that looks like is something like this. So imagine a world where you have an opportunity to engage with your candidates from the moment they say hi to your employment brand, expressing interest either through the form of texting to apply or a quick apply through a chatbot or a more enhanced matching capability using an assessment or a matching service on the career site itself. Giving a candidate the opportunity to truly understand what capabilities or what roles exist at the organization that might be a great fit for her. This goes beyond the resume. It goes beyond a job search. It's leveraging science in order to understand my potential and what jobs could be relevant based on my potential at the business. Candidate then applies and immediately post-application, using the form of an integration or other mechanisms that exist within the solution, the candidate could receive an automatic invitation to either answer some pre-screening questions or knockout questions in the form of a text or emails or both, and or receive an invitation to take an assessment. This assessment is comprised of a variety of different modules, all of which are scientifically backed. They include virtual job tryouts, situational judgments, game-based assessments, AI-based assessments, audio assessments, multiple choice assessments, and more. And that assessment can be a combination of all of those modules in one experience that could be 20 minutes or less. Immediately after taking that assessment, based on how the candidate did, she could receive an invitation to schedule herself for an interview with a recruiter or a hiring manager or with a panel of individuals using enhanced logic in order to make sure that from the moment she hit that submit button and her assessment got scored, she can then go right on somebody's calendar in order to get that interview and have that next conversation. That interview can be in the form of a structured interview, either using our video interviewing technology or Zoom or Teams, all of which is integrated within the platform. And it comes with a structured guide and a rubric, giving our hiring teams knowledge and insight and capabilities on what they should be asking that candidate after she had gone through the screening process to get to this step. Throughout this entire experience, there's robust candidate engagement going on throughout. It means the candidate can text a frequently asked question at any time. She could reschedule her interview if she needed to. She could send a question into the bot and get involved in a separate role or a separate campaign based on that discussion. But the idea here is from the moment she said hi until the moment that job offer hits, the speed at which the process is moving is accelerated, and the level of engagement and enthusiasm on the part of the candidate is heightened because she's very much part of the talent ecosystem and part of this experience that's letting her feel super engaged and really excited about the potential that's out there. And all the candidates going through this process are being evaluated fairly and objectively, following a process that mitigates bias because it's going through an experience that ensures that everybody is getting a fair shot and everybody is being assessed on the relevant skills and competencies and criteria for that role. We're looking for potential. We're not only considering the past. The other big piece of this workflow that I'm sharing here is it's all integrated and it is all automated. And so some of the things that hiring teams find themselves spending a lot of time on are things like progressing candidates through the steps in the status in the ATS, or making candidate changes or updates, or opening a job or creating a different role that might be required, managing duplicate candidates. These are all things that Hirevue solves as well. And so as we think about our ability to truly identify potential and move that talent through the candidate funnel or the talent funnel as quickly as possible, we're also alleviating a lot of stress and pressure and administrative burdens on the part of the recruiting teams so that they could focus on the things that AI and automation are never going to replace. We want our talent and hiring teams to lean into things like empathy and curiosity and picking up the phone and selling a candidate in those last steps of the recruitment process, and not necessarily screening resumes or facilitating phone interviews or examining the assessment results. And that's really the spirit of who we are and what we do. Heavy partnership with our customers, incredible passion towards our candidates as we think about how we solve that problem statements involving Hirevue HR. And so just a couple of I had shared the workflow. Every product that I discussed really lives in these 4 different buckets, right? So structured interviewing, that's the ability to interview using those rubrics, those structured interview guides, ensuring a competency-backed approach to also ensure fairness and equity without the use of AI. Assessments, very large, robust assessments library that is kind of first in our space that lets us build an assessment using different modules and different functions and capabilities that can be on the longer side if we need to, or on the shorter side if we need to, using a combination of all of those different modules. Scheduling with enhanced logic that involves, integrations with Teams and Zoom, et cetera, as well as our own scheduling, our own video interviewing solution. The enhanced logic here also lets us schedule many-to-one panel, considering things like locations, et cetera. And all of this is conversational AI backed and powered by to make sure that we're meeting candidates where they are. And that is not just in email, but in SMS and WhatsApp as well. Cool. So with 5 minutes to go, I just wanted to share a couple of quick customer stories regarding some areas of impact that we've had here. As I mentioned at the top of the discussion, been here for 11 years. The fact that we have 1,200 customers, 70 million interviews, over 200 million chat engagements, and stories across the globe is something that, I could talk all day long about because the impact that our customers are seeing is something that has been incredibly exciting and an honor to be a part of. Just 3 stories here that kind of cover many different verticals, many different locations that I thought might be of interest for the group on the line today. But Just Eat Takeaway, that is Grubhub for those of us in North America, Just Eat in the international market. They leverage AI assessments and video interviewing and chat in order to ensure a more standardized process following that process workflow that I had shared. And what they've seen is an improvement in time to hire and a 66% retention improvement. And so as we think about the process ROI around how fast we can go and the outcome ROI on the turnover impacts, those are real dollars and real benefits back to the business. Emirates Airlines, I was just in Dubai last week, had the pleasure of chatting with some of our customers, including Emirates. They also use our AI assessments as well as technical assessments and video interviewing to realize just in the first several months a $400,000 cost saving. And again, that 50% time to hire, which is a pretty common metric that we'll see with our customers, and almost an entire year of recruiter days saved just by the ability to remove those administrative burdens. And finally, PwC, one of our many sort of customers in the professional and campus hiring categories. PwC was very focused on leveraging an approach to identify skills rather than relying on CVs as well. Their process actually included a couple of different assessment vendors until we were able to partner with them and remove some of that friction top of funnel and support them in moving far more quickly in the process. So 30% less resources required in order to make their progress, as well as a 50% increase in offer rates. So again, these are just some of many as we think about who we are and what we do. But, very excited and honored to be here and have the opportunity to share more about who Hirevue is. I know I've got about 2 minutes, so I'll go ahead, Chris, and take a pause here to see if there are any questions.
Yeah, I think the only thing I would add, I'll close that out for you. The only thing I add, like some of the numbers that you shared are staggering. Like there's just really, really impressive. So let me ask you as a TA leader, how do I know if I'm ready for Hirevue? How do I know if this is something that I should really take a look at? Because a lot of folks feel like, oh man, that's just so far ahead of us. We're not there yet. We maybe next year, that sort of thing. How do I know that I should be giving you a call?
That is a great question, and I appreciate that question. I think two things. One is one of the reasons that the customers that we've had, our customers that we've had for as long as we have, is because we always start where the problem exists and then grow from there. So leveraging Hirevue doesn't mean you're leveraging Hirevue for every job at the company. It means, gosh, I'm having a hard time with this campus use case. I'm going to start here and then continue to build myself out there. And so I would say anytime there's a problem with your recruitment process, whether it's managing volume or needing to move faster or addressing a turnover problem, that's when it's time to call Hirevue.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, really, really nicely done. Pretty comprehensive. And we're really, really grateful for you to make some time to show up today. Thank you so much for the time.
It was a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Dina.
Right. Take care. Okay. Next up, we're switching out. Jerry gets a break.
Not you, though.
Not me. All right, so we're going to welcome in our friends. We've got Jason and Steve, and here's what we're going to put. There you go, Jason in the spotlight. You guys, no screen today, right? We're having a conversation.
Just between two hedges. That's it.
Between two hedges, not ferns, big hedges.
Yeah. There's a copyright on that, Chris. So
somewhere. This is where we randomly start insulting each other with straight faces.
That's true. That's great.
So Jay, talk to us a little bit about Plum. Take us away. Like, who are you? Who's Plum? And who's this Steve guy? Why is he dialed?
Yeah, I'll do a brief introduction of myself. My name is Jason Putnam. I'm the CRO of Plum. So Plum is a workforce solution platform. We use assessments and a ton of other things. And really, we try to understand the most about a human being as possible to make sure that they can flourish in their job and that companies can thrive. I'll turn over to Steve. Steve, tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us about Syneos.
Sure. Thanks, Jason. My name is Steve O'Brien. I'm the Senior Vice President of People Solutions at Syneos Health. People Solutions is a Agile HR unit that we've launched actually this year. And so it's a fun adventure. My work at Syneos has been focused on HR transformation. Across the last 18 months, we've been leading a target operating model transformation that is going well. For any of you out there going through this, I have encouragement to offer. And Plum is a partner of ours in this transformation to help us make as many data-driven decisions as we can to make change work well. And Syneos is a clinical research organization. We help make sure that the drugs that come to market are safe, effective, and that patients want to use them because the therapies improve their lives. We're about 30,000 employees, something like that.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. We're going to do a little different today. So we're not doing a demo. We're not doing a screen share. We're just having a conversation. People hear from me all the time. So we're going to do it where I ask Steve some questions, not only about Syneos. Plum will be weaved in there a little bit, but really want to understand a lot of people out there are trying to go through those changes, and change management's really hard. So I feel like there'll be a lot of value hearing from somebody like Steve at that big of an organization to say, here's what we're dealing with. Here were some of the struggles. Here were some of the obstacles, and here's how we got through them.
Love it.
So Steve, I'm going to run you through some questions for the gauntlet. You ready?
Let's do it. Lightning round between two hedges.
Yeah. So you're going through monumental change. You and I have known each other a really long time, so I know what you're dealing with, and love to hear a little bit about what that change looks like. But share with the CXR members not only what that change looks like, how big it is, what are some of the fears, what are some of those things that keep you up at night, and then how are you leveraging Plum in some of those changes as well would be helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll start with the size of the change. So as I mentioned, we're a 30,000 person company. About 2 years ago, we had a board level initiative mandating enterprise transformation from the very, very top. And so there were no options. We were looking at radical change in HR, finance, IT, go-to-market, right? Like across the entire organization, impacting with significant change, probably 10,000 of our 30,000 employees. Absolutely radical. I had the opportunity to serve as the tower lead for HR. And what that means is as we determined the vision for the enterprise change, it was my responsibility with my colleagues on the senior HR leadership team to decide what is our interpretation in HR going to be, right? So big objectives, release capital, improve data utilization, make it easier to work for this organization. What exactly were we going to do? And so we did decide, as I mentioned, to do a target operating model transformation. That means that we're sort of starting over with a white page. Some of the sort of shifting gears away from how big the change was to some of the things that were on my mind very, very early. When you change this much, excuse me, you're going to take, so HR is 600 people. You're going to take 600 people through an experience where those that are change ready by personality, by disposition, or by circumstances in life, they're going to find a new standing in the organization, right? Social hierarchies get renegotiated. And we're going to find those folks that are like, yeah, I can be motivated by the art of the possible. I see the future. I'm interested. They're going to be appreciated. And then there's going to be a huge chunk of the organization that isn't going to feel that way. Those are not bad employees. And one of my early fears was if we inadvertently run this process where we give into the temptation to value change-ready people and not value change resistors, we are going to disenfranchise an enormous portion of our population. And we are going to disenfranchise the population that keeps our organization running when we aren't changing, right? The vast majority of the folks that keep the wheel at 10 and 2. And so I didn't have an answer for how I was going to avoid that, but that was a very early meditation for me. It's like, oh, okay, so we have to avoid that. Like we need to be real clear about how we think about that. And then the second thing that was on my mind was even when you run change perfectly, right? Like just to do the thought experiment of the platonic ideal of change, you make no errors. The diffusion of innovation curve still exists. You still have early adopters, you still have early majority, you still have late majority, and you still have late adopters. Why do they exist? What are their needs? And how do I know more about them so that I'm able to not pressure them in places where we can't effectively have great conversations because you need something I haven't given you? And also, how do I identify them and think clearly about change journeys that are mapped to where your cohort is or which cohort you're a part of? And so that's, I've known Jason for a long time, but I came to the Plum team and I was like, I need data. I need clarity. We will accomplish our goals, but I want to do it in the kindest, most data-enriched way possible, understanding the drivers and the drainers and the culture of our organization so that we're scientific, right? And so that we are precise when we roll this forward. And so that's sort of the big picture. And again, I come to you from the other side of 18 months, the design work. We're in implementation now. It's going great. It's hard work, but it's going great.
You've done a lot of the hard stuff already, which a lot of people are fearful of. So I appreciate it. Chris, Barb, any questions here? You want me to keep peppering Steve with a few more questions?
Well, go ahead, Barb. Do you have a question? No? Okay.
I know Chris does.
Yeah, I always have a question.
Yeah.
I am a little curious how you're using Plum. So, I understand the story of change, and change is hard. I think change management is the Achilles heel of talent acquisition, quite frankly, Steve. So,
yep.
And I hear you kind of telling the story. And I'm just kind of wondering, well, when you went to the team, and we know kind of what Plum brings, but for those who have just dialed in or watching this even later, kind of what was the intent of bringing them on board, and how do you have them in play today?
Yeah. So there were two intents on the personality assessment side. One is I wanted to create a ceremony or a thing that we did as a community that created permission and normalization of talking about needs, drivers, and drainers, right? So that we could build our muscle as an organization as we go through change, talking about this stuff in a safe way that was non-punitive. It was not celebratory or condemnatory, right? It was just, we are individuals that have very different experiences and personalities. And so one is I just wanted a ritual that I could put in place, that I could scale across hundreds and hundreds of people, and that I could distribute down to managers and that they could succeed with it, right? So one dimension is that. The second dimension is I actually wanted to really know what are the drivers and drainers and what are the cohorts that I have in my organization, right? What are the personality types and what are the activities that bring out the best in them that they run towards? And what are the activities that they don't, right? That cost them a lot of emotional energy, cost them a lot of, invite them to procrastination because it drains them. I wanted a real clear picture of our organization. And so it was both rituals that were useful and productive for us as a community, and then data that helped us be much clearer about our conversations and the particulars of our group of 600 HR people. The use cases evolved. And so now we're using their culture capabilities. Culture is a fascinating thing because it's sort of the type of topic that everybody says, oh, everybody knows what it is. Like, do you? and how measurable is it? And do you have much visibility between like your aspirational self and your actual self? And we should have both, right? In my opinion, I think that you should always have goals and dreams for yourself that are bigger than what you can live up to, right? Like you should have dreams, right? And then you should also have a bit of self-awareness about where am I today? The way that the culture survey works with Plum is it enables me to not have any of those debates with people about whether you do or don't know the culture. I don't need to have a debate about that. And we don't need to debate about whether or not we are at our aspirational culture or not. It shows up in the data, right? And so we're able to be much more scientific in a sense, right? Just more dispassionate. Like, hey, here's what the results are. And I agree that this is what we want to shoot at, but this, 10,000 people that we've surveyed have said over here in cooperation, we're not anywhere close to where you think we are as a management team member, right? So what might we do to bring your aspiration to life for our actual employees?
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Jason. I want to cut you off.
No, go, Chris.
Well, I'm just kind of like, you seem like a pretty mindful dude. So you've kind of got things planned out. You know what to expect. You've got a route that you're on. You've got an outcome ahead that is the objective, right? You're shooting for that, even if it's a little bit lofty. But did you get any curveballs along the way with Plum? Was there anything that kind of surprised you didn't expect along that journey?
Well, and I think this is awareness for anybody using the tool technology or somebody with really great data. Hard conversations are still hard, right? But you can be far more intentional and confident that the hard conversations you're having are based in reality and are the right ones to have. And so that's the interesting thing. I don't know if I'd call it a curveball, but for anybody going through transformation, I think it's important to be aware of. I believe we've done a great job and I'm very happy with our outcomes. It's still really hard. Like it's still emotional. And it, as a leader, and this is something that maybe I just find hard. I talked to my team a little bit about this. When you're having tough conversations, you're invited to, or a way to think about it is you're invited to two polar opposites. One is to be a sledgehammer, right? And just like plow through the adversity and plow through the disagreements and the confusion and just like clobber people.
On the bus or under it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's a perfect cliche. That's exactly right. And the other is to capitulate. To surrender to the resistor, a trump card. Both of these are wrong, right? Like you have to stay right here in the middle in the tension and the frustration and the confusion of, I can't tell if the feedback somebody's getting or giving me is very perspectived and from that one chair that they sit in, or if it's early evidence of an aggregated observation that I need to take much more seriously. And And you've got to be willing to do the work, right? To sit in that tension and sort of have the conversations, but you can be much more precise and you can be much more judicious with those particular challenging conversations when you've got a picture of drainers and drivers and the way that our organization is composed. And does this intersect with an area of our culture that we have a belief about ourselves, but the actualization is much different? You can just be a much more data-driven leader and much wiser about where you invest a lot of emotional energy. And then, of course, with that, much more impactful.
Yeah, I love what you said, Steve, right? And we've talked about, we've known each other a long time, even in different roles. And you are one of these people who kind of sees what's coming around the corner, which is really good, whether you want it to be coming around the corner or not, which is great, but you know what's coming around the corner. If you think of, for those who are on the call who don't necessarily know who Plum is, historically we've used psychometric data at scale to be able to measure those drivers and drainers. Recently, we had a product announcement a couple of weeks ago where we've thrown culture in, which Syneos is one of the early on adopters using that at scale. But we brought in hard skills. So we're really this first product to bring in hard skills, soft skills, and culture. See, when you look at that kind of from where you are today, but from a future perspective, you've addressed culture. Where do you see the combination of that hard skill, soft skill, skills-based org that everybody's trying to get to? Where do you see that play from a Syneos perspective?
So the kind of work that we do is very project oriented, right? And so we assemble project teams often to support a particular sponsor, Pfizer, Merck, et cetera. We have historically had low resolution visibility to skills, and before Plum, low resolution visibility to soft skills as well, right? And so it helps us know that when we put a project team together, there is a good reason to think it will succeed. Right? That as we shape the project and we think about the skills profile and the demand of the project, that we have some evidence that the skills possession of the team members actually maps onto what the project requires. But for anybody that's done a school project or worked on a project team, you know that group dynamics and the success of the project is not just down to the individuals have the hard skills to do it. Have you also composed the team of the soft skills and an awareness of the interaction of those individuals so that they're able to cooperate, so that they're able to move the project forward? And so now we have the ability to also see, if we put together a team, this is just illustrative, if we put together a team of 10 people with exactly the right skills, but all of them are very low on cooperation, they find it draining, very high on execution, you have good reason to think that that project team is probably not going to work. Right. And so even though you have the skills composition that you need, you don't have the social, you don't have the soft skills composition. And so now we can go and take a look at, well, what other paths might be available to us to balance both having the skills on the project that need to be delivered for us to be successful and the people perspective that make sure that that's a successful team when we put it together.
And I've learned a lot from you during this process, right? There's this as you're going through change management, there's this early on adopter curve, right? And people think they're either early on adopters or leaders are trying to identify who early on adopters are, which is always very difficult. You're using Plum to kind of figure out who those early on adopters are. But how do you see it? I use your sandpaper analogy all the time, Steve. How do you see that for the rest of the org, right? So, hey, we know these people are going to adopt. Cool. But then what? Yeah, so one of the most important things is when we have individuals that we know are in the, let's say, the late majority cohort, it's unproductive. But let me take a step back. All right, depending on what change model you use, maybe you can relate to this, but we generally speaking talk about change through the ADKAR model: awareness, desire, ability, knowledge, reinforcement. And in the ADKAR model, there's two of those that I find absolutely fascinating because they're negotiated. Ability and desire are negotiated. And it may sound weird to hear me say ability is negotiated, but maybe you can relate to anybody that believed that you could do something, but you disagreed, right? What did that conversation feel like? If it progressed, you negotiated with that person. They negotiated with you. It was a coach. It was somebody, right? But like, you had to be persuaded that you have the ability. The fact that you had it, if you give credit to the interlocutor, wasn't what you needed. You needed to be persuaded that you have it.
And so as we think about those non-early adopters, the early majority, the late majority, and the late adopter, basically our theory is that they need different things to be persuaded of their ability and to experience desire, right? And so the Plum data helps us cohort folks. It helps us identify like where in the change or the diffusion of innovation curve are you going to sit. But then we also have a theory that we've laid on top of it. So basically it goes something like this. I don't have a research paper to prove this. I have the amateur trench warfare insights here.
The scars. You have the scars.
Yeah, that's right. The scars. Yeah. So the early adopter you could think of as individuals that are able to experience desire on the basis of a really interesting idea, right? Like you tell them that this is possible and they're like, yep, let's go. The early majority want evidence, right? They're like, hey, that's a great idea, but help me know that that idea is real, right? Do you have any data? Do you have any examples of it working somewhere else or in a small place in our organization? And once I have a little bit of evidence, like, yeah, I'm on board. I'll get on the boat. And then the late majority, they need the security of the crowd in order to experience desire and a sense of ability. And so you need to sort of sequence change through your organization and put the call to action to your organization with some cohorting, right? And so when we find our early adopters, our goal is to not just sell a what's in it for me vision or an art of possible could be statement, but to give them the research papers and the thought leadership from outside our organization, as well as insight into where we've piloted these changes so that they have what they need to experience desire. And we're not going to go to the late majority and try and cultivate a whole bunch of interest in them until we've got a big group of the community on board, because that generates friction. Right? Like, do you ever have somebody try and sell you something with a whole bunch of value propositions you don't give a crap about? Right? Like, it's just annoying, right? You're like, you're saying a bunch of things, none of which I care about, right? And so that's probably the bottom line is we've nuanced our value proposition to try and tie to what the people need to hear in order for the value propositions to actually motivate them.
Awesome. Thanks, Steve. Barb, Chris, I know we have a minute left. Any quick ending questions before we hand it off to you all?
I don't think so. I would say that I love hearing the thought and intentionality that Steve frankly brought you to Plum, and then that you obviously chose to implement Plum with. I would love it as you're going out, just real quick. How was adoption? Like, were the people on your team on board? Do you think it really made a difference with them?
Yeah. So of all the things that I had to invest a lot of time on, adoption actually wasn't one of them, because the user experience and the seat time is so easy, right? So if anybody's done a psychometric where it's like 50 minutes or it's super complicated and you've got to have a bunch of IO psychologists holding your hand as you read the braille of the readout, none of that's true. And so I was able to say authentically, look, it's about a 15 to 20 minute seat time. You get an immediate readout. It's easy to digest. I'm not just puffing it up. It's visually beautiful, right? Of all the things, it displays the information in an attractive way. And so from an adoption perspective, I just needed to show people and then tell them it only takes 20 minutes. And they're like, cool.
Perfect.
Yeah. I love it. Well, Steve, thank you. Look, thanks for the backstory. I got to get you connected to some of our other leaders. You're like a master class in change.
I don't know. I've certainly been down the road and happy to share some stories with them.
I love it. And then Jason, thank you so much. We appreciate you guys. Glad you could join us.
Thank you all.
All right. Next up, we've got, let's see, here we go. Oops. They jump around when people leave, so it's like whack-a-mole.
They do. Hey, just in case people thought it wasn't live, it's really live.
It's 100% live. There we go. Let's see if I'm missing anybody. Master, we're going to pull you over here. Take that conversation. And that Master, it's good to see you. Thanks for joining us. You got some folks with you.
Good to see you as well. Yeah. Thanks to everyone who is tuning into this session. I know it's been a long day. I've enjoyed the morning. I think I have captured nuggets from almost everything that's been shared today. So thank you for inviting us here, and I look forward to sharing with you. My name is Master Burnett. I serve as the head of growth here at HireBrain, and I am joined by our CEO and founder, David Nason, and Jessica McNulty. who is the senior manager of global TA operations at Nutanix. She's a HireBrain customer. She's going to bring some perspective to today. My plan for our 20 minutes is basically to give you a quick walk through HireBrain so you get an idea of what it is. If anyone wants to learn more, I love to talk, so I will happily do one-on-ones with anyone. And then we're going to jump over and let Jessica and David kind of explore what HireBrain is meant for Nutanix. So I am going to share my screen for the first part here. So I think the first thing that we want to start with is that most recruiting technology focuses on efficiency, not fundamentally helping the key stakeholders in recruiting hire better. And unfortunately, great hiring is not a skill that most managers ever get a chance to develop because they just don't get to do it very often. Many managers are hiring for their first time, or they hire once or twice a year. So it's just not something they get to do often. We focus on enabling managers and recruiters to hire better. And we do that by applying technology to the more foundational parts of the recruiting process that often get left out by your core TA tools. So we augment your existing infrastructure with a series of tools that will improve both the quality of hire and the experience for everyone that's involved. That is our mission, to improve the experience and the business outcomes of the hiring process. And David will share a little bit how that came to be our focus in just a little bit. So the foundation of HireBrain, being a series of applications, is, if I can get my slide to move forward, again, we do touch the entire hiring lifecycle, but the foundation of this is really role design. So role design at HireBrain is an AI-assisted prompt-driven system that helps managers design roles that are forward-facing and that highlight the actual performance objectives of the role and not the role's team environment. You've heard several of the presenters today really talk about producing a better description to better align talent to your application cycle, to discourage those who aren't relevant to the role from applying, to improve the readiness for interviews, everything about that. So when even the best hiring process is based on a job description that a majority of employees argue doesn't accurately characterize their job, it's no wonder why some hires fail, because the entire process is based on that description of the role. So job leveling models in particular strip away context. They struggle to remain current. So descriptions that cascade from them or that are pieced together from a variety of borrowed resources, as most job descriptions are often dull, dated, and filled with errors. Two people in the same job may in fact have the same job title, but have fundamentally different roles. So the HireBrain approach produces a role design that is job specific and cascades a job description and a candidate assessment framework from that role description. It bridges the gap between business planning, talent acquisition, and performance management, a connection that immediately repositions the role of recruiting in the mind of a hiring manager. Now, to help people with that, most managers aren't going to sit down and spend 35, 40 minutes doing a form-based interview to produce a better product. So at HireBrain, we have produced several approaches to help drive better role design. The first of those is intake. So for hiring managers that hire more often or that have already completed some hiring-based training, they can jump directly into role design or leverage intake. Intake is an application for Zoom or Microsoft Teams that provides a structured intake agenda for the recruiter and the manager to drive that conversation. Our AI joins that conversation, listens to it in real time, and populates that structured agenda to make sure that nothing gets missed in the intake call. It then produces a data classified set of notes. So you heard our friends at Findem talk about taking a job description and automatically producing a query, a search query from that document. At HireBrain, we've partnered with Findem to produce a data classification of intake data that produces a better search result than a job description on its own. So that's part of that process. The manager who hires infrequently or is hiring for the first time, they can go through their hire manager training and do role design at the same time. We've embedded our role design application inside of an e-learning module that helps organizations and managers reduce bias, understand the science of decision making, and produce a role design at the same time. So if they're hiring once a year, this is an opportunity to kill two birds with one stone and get a much higher quality product coming out of that process. I mentioned Findem just a few seconds ago, and I'll push through this really quickly. But those data classified notes that come out of our intake calls, one, they pre-populate the role design. So it's going to shorten the amount of time a manager has to spend fine-tuning that role design. But within seconds of completing the intake call, and I literally mean within seconds, we can hand that data classified set of notes off to Findem. And in the same intake call, a manager and a recruiter can start fine-tuning search results. So if there are any perceptions that are missed, they can really hone in on what it is they're looking for. This can accelerate time to fill. It can accelerate time to interview. More importantly, it can eliminate the rework that's often required by recruiters trying to tease out what it is the hiring manager is actually going to be motivated by in candidates that are being presented. So accelerating that workflow is just a phenomenal experience for everyone that's involved. Now, I mentioned the role design and job descriptions. We've heard a lot about job descriptions today. We've heard a lot about using OpenAI to produce better job descriptions. But the simple truth is, if you're asking a few very basic questions, or you're taking data from your job leveling system or from other things, OpenAI is only going to spit out something that's as good as the inputs you give it. And so with role design, we're able to capture a very future-facing description of that role, the performance objectives, information about the team environment. So producing compliant, template matching, engaging job descriptions that are a pain for most organizations are simple in Hirebrain. The Hirebrain Job Library provides a global collaborative space for organizations to store and work on active job descriptions. Because it enables an infinite level of templating, every group in the organization can present its own employment brand. So engineering doesn't have to present roles the same way that operations will present roles, or that finance will present roles. We can bring different templates forward and allow for that. The Hirebrain AI will customize all of the elements of the job description based on the role design that you allow, while locking the sections that are essential for legal and brand compliance. It'll also make suggestions to improve the language and reduce bias. We call it pro-social job descriptions. We don't just look at gender biasing terms. We look at multiple types of bias that are present in job descriptions and how to remove and improve those. When they're ready, you can push them into your ATS with a single click. So you heard the folks at Cielo talk about having to copy and paste. If you're an old school Taleo user, posting a job was what, an hour and 30-minute ordeal. In this case, you could produce your job description in a matter of seconds and push it directly into your ATS, complete with uniform styling, complete with brand compliance, and you're ready to go. So you're not going to deal with the rigid rules and structures that you find in most modern day systems. But the job library isn't the only thing that can cascade from the role description. So many organizations use behavioral interviews. They cast out a guide that may be for the larger job family, or it's a generic behavioral interview guide. Because we have a role design that is future facing, we can produce an AI generated job specific interview guide and interview scorecard for each and every role that you're hiring for. Not only that, we can personalize that interview guide based on the personality of the interviewer, so that those opportunities to ice break in the initial conversation or to inject humor into the interview can be present in the interview guide and consistent across the entire opportunity. If the interview guide and the scorecard aren't enough to drive significant time savings and automation, we can also produce something that every new hire will benefit from, and even some interviewers will benefit from. That being new hire objectives. We can produce a 12 to 18 month OKR-like plan of success for new hires off of that role design. That can be shared pre-hire to help candidates prepare for the interview, pull out relevant examples to share, or it can be used post-hire as part of the new hire onboarding flow, or used to pre-populate performance management systems. Now, I know this has been a super fast overview, but because we touch so many elements of the hiring lifecycle, going through a live demo would be nearly impossible in 20 minutes, and we want you to get the customer perspective. So as I said earlier, I love to talk. I will take you through every aspect of it as deep as you want it. But at this point, I'd really like to let David and Jessica take over. David's going to share a little bit about his experience and what led to the creation of HireBrain, and then share with Jessica the value that it's producing at Nutanix. David?
Very cool. Yeah, thanks, Master. Thanks for having us here today. My name is David Nason, and I'm the CEO and founder of HireBrain. I spent almost 20 years in recruiting, leading teams at Oracle, Infor, and Cisco. About 150,000 hires in 160 some odd countries around the world. Well, here's the thing we all know. Hiring is hard. Hiring well is really hard. Something that we might not always think about, though, is that one of the reasons is that hiring is a super high stakes situation for the manager, right? It could be their career, their livelihood, when things go bad. Recruiting processes are generally, they're one-to-one, right? Interactions between a recruiter and a hiring manager, and both parties come into that with different experiences and expectations. There's lots of friction and noise in the process, and as Master described, with job descriptions, they're generally disconnected from reality, right? And they don't describe the job. That leads to polls done for new hires 6 months post-hire. They report that the job that they're doing and the environment is materially different than what was described to them in their interview process. Well, here's something that I've came to realize fairly early on as it relates to managers. Number one is it's not their fault. So 70% of the managers at our organizations, they only hire once or twice a year. And 20 to 25% of the managers at our companies have never hired or making the first hires ever of their in their life, right? But inherently, somehow we expect them to be experts. Number two is if you solve the problem of the hiring manager, you solve recruiting problems. The inspiration behind HireBrain happened early days at Oracle when we brought in interviewing training companies to solve problems for early attrition. Well, here was the thing: 3 to 6 months later, virtually no one was doing anything that they learned in that training. I later learned that that's due to something called the Ebbinghaus curve or the forgetting curve, that we start to forget information that's been presented to us literally within hours. I knew that there had to be a better way, and I'll shorten this a little bit and share more of my story later, but the bottom line is I grew up in a household of scientists. I've applied the scientific method at work. I built a team of science advisors, some of them globally famous in their fields, cognitive neurology, neurobiology, et cetera. And the thing that I landed on was to build an application with the hiring manager in mind. An application that a manager can use before, during, and after a hiring cycle to ensure the highest probability of success, to provide education through that experience. And then we evolved into what we've become today, which is a platform for recruiting leaders, HR leaders to drive excellence and consistency in hiring throughout their entire organizations, way quicker than you think is possible, but in an environment, a platform that is comfortable and fun to use. So let's switch over to Jess, who's joined us today. Thanks so much, Jess. Talent operations at Nutanix, to hear a little bit about how this works in the real world. So I know that Nutanix has been on a digital transformation for recruiting and hiring journey. Could you tell us a little bit about that vision?
Yeah, happy to. Thanks again for having me, David. So for us at Nutanix, I mean, our vision is all focused around experience. I've heard that word a few times, what you said. I mean, that's really where our focus is. I mean, that means the experience of our customers, meaning hiring managers, candidates, recruiters. I mean, how you search and apply for jobs has been the same for so long, and it's so drastically different than most of the things we spend our time doing, like shopping online, scrolling social media. I mean, it's not as easy and as simple. So our goal is really to transform our organization so that experience is efficient, it's easy, and that's what people want. People want efficiency and things that are quick and easy. So that's really what it's all about for us right now.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, thanks, Jess. So how does HireBrain factor into that strategy?
Yeah, so you saw the quote from my boss, David Malloy, on the slide. It's really the foundation for us. I mean, it has laid the foundation for us to be able to start from scratch in a way. It's so hard. I think we all wish we had a magic wand where we could just say, hey, time out, let me reset everything, and then we can go, right? But that's not the reality. But with HireBrain, we've been able to start at the beginning of the process and have sort of that experience, right? Retrain our managers, reinvent what our job description is going to look like, what our process is going to look like. I mean, we're Findem customers as well. So Master talked about that integration. I mean, it is a game changer for us. I mean, it's truly foundational for us to be able to change everything. And as an operations person, I love that. So I appreciate that it's been able to help us start the journey.
Yeah, thanks. I love that too. I had coffee with your head of L&D and part of the digital transformation team a couple of weeks ago, and the PMO for digital transformation said to us that the job description was a material factor in her choosing the job. And I kind of joked, I can go home, go to bed right now. You know, if we've achieved that, if people are making decisions, hiring decisions, right, and employment decisions based on what they see, that's just a beautiful thing. I'm curious, how do you see AI changing or impacting your ability to influence business leaders at the company?
Yeah, it's been, it has gotten us a lot of street cred, I'll say. I mean, everybody in every company, in every department, no matter what you're doing there, wants to be using AI and is being asked, how are you using AI? Well, we are doing it, right? We're putting it into practice. It's given us some respect from our peers, and people are coming to us. You said you had coffee with Leslie from L&D. I mean, that's an example of how we're not just using HireBrain and the AI solutions that we're putting into place just for selfish reasons, right? We're spreading the love and we're showing, hey, this is what we're doing. This is how we're putting it into practice. And these are, you know, the lessons we've learned along the way. And so it's really, again, I mean, street cred's really the best way I can put it, right? It's how people are coming to us. I mean, I'm a recruiting professional and I'm getting asked for advice on AI. I mean, that is not something I saw on my bingo card, but and I'm so grateful for that. And something that we're just excited to continue.
Yeah, that's very cool. I know people ask all the time, like, how did it produce this? Like, how did it know?
Right.
Well, it's built with neuroscience. It's built with, you know, industry knowledge. It knows your company, et cetera, knows your goals. It knows the company's strategy, et cetera, right?
I think that's a really important point, David. So when we talk about AI, a lot of tools are leveraging OpenAI's APIs or one of the other large language models APIs. With HireBrain, we're actually using context-aware large language models. So they're custom trained with knowledge bases we've produced on what performance objectives look like, on what brand statements look like for a team, on what team descriptions look like, so that the AI can produce a much better output with the limited input you are getting from role design.
Yeah, absolutely. We like to say, you know, this is tech that values your humanity. Nobody wants the box to make decisions for them, right? And that's not what we're doing. We're assisting. This is augmentative, right? It doesn't create stuff super fast. It does those things, right? But it's not meant to replace you. That's just meant to help you. I know we're down to time, but I'd love to know a little bit maybe how you see tools like HireBrain changing the role of the recruiter.
Well, I do have to do the hook. I got to pull you off because we are back to back. But I will tell you, I love what I've seen. I love the partnerships that you've shared, and certainly Jessica, the story that you have shared. And I know it's just a tip of the iceberg of what's going on over there. I think it'd be great to have you guys come back and maybe do a longer session on one of the podcasts to really walk through some of this, because I think this is new. This is super exciting. We don't see a lot of people sort of doing it this way, and certainly at this depth and the delivery. I think this deserves a little bit more time too out in the space. So we'd love to circle back with you and get some broader time.
Thank you, Chris. Great. Yeah, I'd love that. Thanks, Jess. Thanks, Barb.
Thanks.
All right, thanks for joining us. Great job.
Thank you.
Good to see you. All right, there we go. And now we've got Mr. Crispin is back. There he is. And welcoming Mr. Where the Spotlight Goes. All right, the beard is making a comeback. I'm excited about it. How are you, Adam?
It's good.
Very well, thank you. It's a power beard.
I was going to be wide enough. Yeah.
It's not as good as yours.
There we go. Well, we're set, man. So you've got something going on over at Poetry. We've been talking about it for a couple of months with people. We're seeing it pop up in some conversations. It's a no-brainer to have you here today. Talk us through it, man.
Great. Okay. So thank you very much for your time. I'm just going to talk about why we created this product. how we got to the realization that we needed it, the research that we've done into learning about it, learning about the subject. And I'm going to share my screen and just show you a bit about what it looks like, and then I'll explain what the future includes. So that's quite a lot to cover in a short space of time, but let me start with the background. I'm very inspired by sales and marketing technology and sales and marketing processes. I was previously co-founder and CEO of a company called Candidate ID, which was heavily inspired by marketing automation products such as Marketo and Pardot, which are pretty mainstream in a sophisticated sales and marketing team. When we realized that technology like that didn't exist in talent acquisition, we set out on a journey to build it. And over a 6-year period, we had lots of ups and downs, lots of blood, sweat, and tears. But it went very well overall, and we sold that company to iCIMS. I subsequently learned a lot about the area of sales enablement when I was in iCIMS, which was really great. And similarly to the realization that we need marketing automation in talent acquisition, I had a real strong feeling that we might need something similar to sales enablement in talent acquisition. So sales enablement is all about giving the salespeople all of the content and assets and props and tools and calculators and learning and things that they need to get their deal done, from first stage outreach right through to closing the deal and onboarding the customer. And in my mind, I felt like we probably enable our recruiters with an applicant tracking system and a LinkedIn account and a phone and tell them to get on with filling the jobs. And, you know, I'm being slightly facetious, but I did 200 hours of focus groups last year over a 6-month period with talent acquisition people. And what I found was around 80% of companies do what I said. They don't really do anything to properly enable their recruiters with the right content and the right knowledge and the right assets and props and tools and things. Around 20% of organizations, which may well be the types of organizations who would sign in to a session like this and watch these great demos and presentations, they're the ones who had done something about it. But typically, it was maybe they created a SharePoint site with some boilerplate kind of assets, maybe the approved logo, the tone of voice written down somewhere, an EVP written somewhere, that type of thing. And they'd maybe done something around a learning system for typically real like performance skills, like stakeholder management, achieving influence, that kind of thing, rather than here's how to raise a rec, here's how to post a job, here's how to use your CRM, here's how to do all the tactical sort of everyday type things. So a couple of the sort of anecdotes that I got from these sessions. Number one was the talent acquisition manager who joined one of my workshops and told me that that day, the day of that workshop, she'd identified 3 recruiters in her team in different countries who had all written variations on the same job advert. Now, one of them was quite good, one of them was okay, and one of them was not very good. So, I said, what would have been a better process for that? And of course, she agreed that it would have been a better process for the person who was the best writer to have put that together and for everybody else to be able to go and access that asset to use for themselves. Another one that I learned, another anecdote that I thought was pretty regular is the concept of toggle tax. A recruiter has 20 plus tabs open all the time. They've got Chrome extensions, they've got bookmark tabs, they've got apps and all sorts of different things. And they're spending a lot of time every day toggling from one place to another. They are really quite distressed with the volume of different places they've got to go to get their tasks accomplished, to find all the things that they need, even if they exist. And then the third one, which I liked, was really just the fact that so many things don't get used, and like recruiters do a lot of workarounds of their own. So they might create their own folders, like on a desktop somewhere or something like that. And what they will typically do is kind of reinvent the wheel. So Chris may already have written a job advert. I don't know where to find it because he's got it stored somewhere. I'm going to go and create my own. And there's just a lot of duplicate effort put into that as well. So I thought this was very much going to be a marketing focused solution, but as we went through the focus groups, we learned there was 4 kind of key areas where we could support. One was recruitment marketing. The second is recruitment operations. The third is recruiter learning. And the fourth is tools. Marketing, operations, learning, tools. MOLT. MOLT. So I call it MOLT. That's the 4 sort of areas. Have you got any questions, Chris or Jerry, before I go and share my screen and just show you what our response to this looks like?
I don't have any questions. I always love to talk to you. I do think it's funny. Years and years and years ago, our first conversation we ever had together was about platform fatigue, and I love and it just resonates. And I love the fact that this is one of those things that you're looking to tackle. But I like the toggle tax term a little better than platform fatigue.
Toggle tax. It's a killer. So
yeah, I love this. It's great.
So, Jerry, we've taken inspiration from you as well. In fact, we've taken inspiration from many, many people, and we continue to learn all the time. We are literally building this in public. We're posting on LinkedIn and other social networks all the time. What would you want from this solution? How do you think this should be delivered? What's your approach to doing this? I set up a YouTube channel called Recruiter Enablement, and I've interviewed 190 plus talent acquisition people to share knowledge of this subject. And it's been a wonderful journey, and I've really enjoyed learning a lot about it. So this is poetry. When the recruiter logs in, they are at this desktop. And on the desktop, there are tiles. Each tile represents a solution, and they're in 4 solutions groups, as I've mentioned: marketing, operations, learning, and tools. As you can see, some of these tiles have our branding on them. They're native solutions we've developed ourselves. You could add third-party solutions in here to make it really easy for your recruiters not to be going on to Teams or Slack all the time saying, what's the URL for that video solution I should be using? What's the name of that assessment thing I should be using? They're all on here. There's no single sign-on or anything like that at this point, but the pilot programs we're doing with international organizations are giving us loads of great insights into what they're going to require for, I'm talking about teams of 100 to 1,000 talent acquisition people, and their needs are, of course, very complex. So we're learning, we're listening, and we're enhancing this product at light speed. But right now, I put on the third-party tiles. I want to go into Greenhouse, click on the link. It just opens up my Greenhouse. I want to use this marketplace. It's called Gigged. Click on the link. It just opens it up. Now, there's 28 native solutions in here. Let me talk you through a journey that I might do as a recruiter. So I need to learn about a job because I'm going to be working on something I've never worked on before. So I go into this research solution. I click Create Research, and this is a data job. It's a data analyst job, and it's in New York City. So I click the Understanding Jobs option, and there's a number of templated questions in here, such as what's the main responsibilities? What are the job titles mean the same? What academic institutions train people to do this job? Who employs people like this in our area? What's the typical salary for and benefits for people working in this job, in this area? I've clicked on Perform Research, and it's given me some suggested alternative job titles. Okay, once I've gone through those research questions, I know a bit more about the job. And so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go and find some candidates. I go into my Boolean builder, always go into find because you don't want to recreate the wheel. And if there's nothing in there, then I'll go into create. This is a design job. It's a product designer job. It's based in San Francisco. I want similar job titles. So I click on the Inspire Me button, and it's going to give me synonymous jobs. I want locations close by San Francisco. Click on Inspire Me. It's going to give me locations close by. Build my Boolean string. Click Search Google. Here's a whole bunch of people with the right type of job titles in the right kind of area. There's other things I can do to make that a more sophisticated search. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to reach out to all of these individuals. So I'm going to go into my social media outreach solution. I click find to find relevant things. And if there's nothing in there, I'll go to create. This is a IT job. It is a network engineer, and it's based in London. I click inspire me. This is now going to create me some suggested language for my outreach messaging. And what it's going to produce here is going to be semi-vanilla because this is in my demo workspace. Okay. However, when a customer sets up their workspace, they go into the configuration area, and in here, they choose what do I want as my intros and outros for things like job adverts, job descriptions, social media posts, and that type of thing. That's going to ensure consistency. It's going to ensure that the main messages that employer brand people want to get across are all coming through. I'm also going to go into my global rules, and I'm going to input the URL for the careers site. Poetry is going to review information in the careers site, and that's going to help with the creation of the content assets in here. We've got your company's recruitment related hashtags in here, your EVP goes in here, and you fill in your generative AI rules. You also go into the company information section and fill in this questionnaire about your company. What does it do? Why was it started? What's its core values and principles? And once you've done that, when you're then producing things like email copy or landing page copy, or social media outreach, social media posts, candidate interviews, it's all going to be pretty well on brand, consistent, and your recruiters are going to have to do minimal editing before it's ready to use. If I don't want to go into all of these solutions because of that job that I'm working on is brand new and I know that nobody's created anything for that, I can click playbooks, always go into find, and if there's nothing in there, go into create. This playbook is for a product job. It's a product marketing manager. It's based in, I'll choose Glasgow, where I am in Scotland. I click select all because I want all of these assets, build my playbook, and there's my Boolean string. Here's my brand advert. It's now building out my candidate interview template. It'll then build out a conversation guide. Conversations guides like a crib sheet or an elevator pitch or that type of thing. It'll take about 2.5 to 3 minutes to develop these 20 or so assets. So while it's doing that, I'm going to show you a couple of other things. So within Poetry, you've also got the ability to generate business cases. So if you're a manager or a leader in the team, you can go in here to find business cases that other people have prepared. Or alternatively, you can go and create one. So this is related to healthcare recruitment. And I want additional budget. Specifically, it's for nursing. So I am pitching to the registered nurse head of department. And I want increased volume of applicants. I click build business case, and this is now going to generate for me about 6 or 7 different suggestions for things that persona, that type of person, would be interested in and would likely to be saying, yes, I'm happy to give you that additional budget, whatever it might be. Another very useful solution in here is our battle cards. We're going to be doing a lot to really supercharge this, but what we have in here for now is if I'm going to be interviewing a candidate who works for, say, Amazon, I can come in here and I can see what have my colleagues said about Amazon's strengths and weaknesses and leadership and things like that. So it's pretty useful for understanding the intellectual capital within the team. Just one more solution I want to show you, and that's our team learning solution. So if you've got new people who are joining the organization, then this is the first place you send them. And so they can easily go and find out about, here's how we as a team do advertising. Here's how we do assessment. Here's how we do CRM. Here's how we do career sites. And for the pilot programs that we're doing with the enterprise organizations we're working with, one of the things that we've learned is that they really want to be able to understand who's actually reviewing all of this. And so we'll ask people a simple question about how they do assessment, or how to do employee referral, or how to do interviewing, or whatever, just so they can get a little green tick to say they have reviewed that and they understand it. Some people might think that's bossware, so you'll be able to switch that off. You won't have to have that on the in the system. There's configuration opportunities in terms of the actual look and feel of the desktop. You can shuffle your solutions around. You can switch them off. You can easily add in other things. You can click on the heart button and you can have your favorites up at the top. And you can also see quite easily what's going on in the workspace. So I can see at a glance which of the solutions are being used the most by the thickness of the border and based on the number in the corner, not just for our native solutions, but how many times are the third-party solutions being used as well. So I can filter that according to individuals. I've got a one-to-one with, say, Stephen. I can select Stephen, analyze the desktop, and I can see that Stephen is doing lots of great work in here. There's a lot more in the analytics that we can offer. Let's just take a look at this playbook. AI images is not for everybody. This is a product marketing manager based in Glasgow. There's a few things I've done to customize this with like the logo in the right place. You can have hashtags and career sites and things like that. I've asked for this to be photorealistic. I'm not sure what she's doing up top left.
I love the flying TA team member.
She's a flying product marketing manager, actually.
Product marketing
manager. Let's just take a look at one piece of information that this playbook's generated, the persona. So current salary for a product marketing manager in Glasgow, between 45 and 65,000, and the sources are Glassdoor, PayScale, and LinkedIn. That sounds about right to me. Have they got any management experience, work experience, etc.? Who do they work for? They work for organizations like maybe Skyscanner, FanDuel, Agreco, or M Squared Lasers. So I hope I haven't gone too heavily over my time. I'll stop sharing screen. And yeah, I hope that's been interesting. So love to find out if you've got any comments or if anybody wants to reach out. It's easy to find me. I'm on LinkedIn, and the company URL is poetryhr.com.
Right, Jerry, do you got anything you want to weigh in? I have an observation, but I know we got a minute left.
Yeah, I mean, I love the thought that you've put into this, the degree to which you've really spent gathering information that gets you there.
Yeah, and Adam, I would add to that. I mean, as you were clicking on the playbook, my question to you is who's in here predominantly, like ideally using the platform? Because it's not just the recruiter.
No, there's several there's several user groups. I mean, we split them simply as admins and users at this point, but we're creating more layers of personas and authorization in here right now based on feedback from international companies. But for now, the users are probably recruitment marketers, recruitment operations people, and the people that set up and they're the guardians of the workspace and the templates. And then users are recruiters and talent sourcers, typically.
Yeah, there's some space in there for hiring managers too, I think.
This is a very big theme for the second half of the year is hiring manager enablement. Absolutely. And I think that we are probably moving to a world where talent acquisition is going to have more and more responsibility for creating self-service experiences and enabling hiring managers to do a great job. So I think there's going to be more exciting jobs in TA for people in operations type things and enablement. Oh, yeah. Hiring manager enablement is definitely a big theme for the second half of the year for us.
I love it. Well, Adam, man, it's good to see your face. Love that the beard is coming back. And we're just grateful for the time you gave everybody today. Thanks for dialing in.
No, I really appreciate it. The thanks is all mine.
No, good stuff. Good luck with this. All right, Jerry, we are up next. I'm excited. Where's Fitz? There he is. Hey, Fitz.
Out here somewhere. What's up?
How are you? And you have a guest with you today?
It's just my alter ego. So.
Oh, there we go. Gotcha. It's a screen. How about that? It's a screen for you.
It's a screen.
All right. Well, I'll get your QR code up and running, and then why don't you just dive right in, man? You got 20 minutes. Take us away.
Awesome. Let's roll. Are you seeing my screen all right?
I am. You want me to pull it up for you on the screen?
Fantastic. Yep.
There you go.
So just a quick shout out. Thanks guys for putting this whole thing together. It's a grind and we all appreciate it. So just to get a little oriented with Crosschq, right? So we've created a hiring intelligence platform, and I know the audience, probably the last thing we want to hear about is a new category, but we really think the industry deserves it. So, and we're going to give a quick introduction to what we think of as hiring intelligence, and then we're going to go do a deep dive around specifically the quality of hire topic, because that's a hot topic and top of mind for so many organizations right now. With that, just in terms of quick background on the company, we're about 5 years old. We're based out here in the Bay Area. We have about 400 active customers in the enterprise. Crossed over 30 million hiring decisions touched over the last year, which is awesome. And we're working with most of the top kind of HCM partners. So when you're looking at the stuff we're going to show you today, you can think about it as being interoperable with most of the large ATS and HRIS, et cetera. One thing that I thought was interesting that Adam just highlighted around poetry, and part of the inspiration that he took for that business, was the correlations between sales and marketing. We think about hiring intelligence in a very similar vein. Right. If I think about the revenue category broadly, and if we even think about Salesforce, and where was Salesforce 10 years ago? Salesforce, after 15 years in business, was at $3 billion in revenue, and then this new category sprouted up called revenue intelligence. Well, revenue intelligence is now a massive category, right? It's a multi-billion-dollar category, which is basically helping you, bring more intelligence to optimize your revenue business. We always hear in talent that we feel like talent acquisition and talent broadly is about 10 years behind revenue, and we agree. So we just think the industry is due to have a platform that directly addresses hiring intelligence, which effectively has the goal of kind of making every aspect of recruiting and talent acquisition fundamentally better, right? So when you kind of look at the data, Deloitte did a recent study on this where 83% of TA leaders kind of validate this need, where they're saying, I just don't have enough data to optimize talent acquisition. And we know that once you do have good data, you can actually drive much better financial performance. So that's really at the heart of what Crosschq is created to do. We talk about this idea of helping talent organizations go from disconnected data to actionable insights. I think we all know that our talent acquisition stacks, in many cases now, I think the average is something like 12 different pieces of technology. So like, how the heck are we going to combine all of this stuff to actually answer the questions that our recruiting and TA leaders want to answer about how to optimize our business? So when I think about the types of actionable insights that Crosschq is trying to help companies drive, simple questions like, am I going to achieve my hiring goals this month? We have some really cool predictive capabilities that use some AI to help you tell that real time at any point in time. How do I reduce my time to hire? Ultimately, what we're going to talk about today around quality of hire, and even things around candidate experience, et cetera. So our goal in with Crosschq is to help talent acquisition and recruiting leaders have one destination they can go to answer any question they have about any aspect of hiring, and ultimately drive optimizations and make the whole thing better. All right, so that's what we're all about. As part of the platform, we have hundreds of pre-built dashboards. We have really cool embedded sharing capabilities. We know that, just like you asked in the prior question, that the democratization of hiring intelligence needs to happen not just to recruiters and to recruiting managers and recruiting leadership, but it needs to go across the organization to hiring managers, et cetera. So we're really just strong believers and have built a platform that enables organizations to get access to all this great data and insights and then share it across the org. All right, so that's kind of the foundation of the Crosschq platform, and I know I wanted just to kind of level set on that. The focus for today is really around quality of hire, right? And this is one of the topics I know we talked about prioritizing, and the reason is that our leaders are all starting to prioritize this. This is a recent survey that we conducted, just asking questions of talent leaders, saying, hey, what are the core problems that hiring intelligence can improve for your company? For the first time, quality of hire has now passed recruiting efficiency as number one on the list. This is awesome. Our friends Madeline and Kyle over at Aptitude published a study recently that validated the same thing. And so this is happening, right? And we all need to kind of embrace that the change is on. LinkedIn also did us a solid, right? They just published their future of recruiting report. And again, they also, for the first time, said quality of hire is going to be the number one priority for the next 5 years. So we're all still scratching our heads saying, all right, we're all saying this, right? How the heck do we attack it? And I think that just brass tacks and simplifying what we're trying to solve for, right? We all know in talent acquisition that we spend a lot of dough investing in sourcing, in selection, in assessment, in onboarding and training. And yet we know we have highly variable hiring outcomes, right? We know we have our superstars that are exceeding expectations, they're ramping more rapidly, and then we have full-on failed hires and a lot of noise in between. So the challenge historically has been in this category is like, how the heck do I get my hands wrapped around this? And frankly, as a talent acquisition leader, I haven't really spent a lot of time historically caring about what happens, frankly, after the fact of maybe onboarding or maybe in that first 90 days. But this is part of focus of the platform, and frankly, part of the focus of the strategy shift that we're seeing start to happen. And again, excited just to kind of share how we attack it. So to that end, I do want to just emphasize this point, and it's, who benefits from a quality of hire solution. This is not a TA only thing. We know it, right? But TA can be thought leaders in this. And in progressive organizations, where we're seeing is talent acquisition is taking a leadership role in driving this quality of hire movement. Once we get this going, we do know that leadership is going to be viewed as more strategic within the org. We know that recruiters are going to have actionable insights on the things that are within their control, like sourcing, like quality of candidate, things of that nature. Hiring managers benefit because they're getting better talent outcomes. People analytics teams benefit because guess what? They have a long list of stuff they have to do for their orgs, and this is at the bottom of the list, even though everyone acknowledges how important it is. And then lastly, in the C-suite, we are seeing, which just gets me so excited, that this is becoming a C-suite metric. We're actually seeing quality of hire finally reported, right, as an OKR, as a KPI, a bonus impacting KPI for HR and talent team. So there's some really cool stuff happening, and I think we're all acknowledge the fact that this is not a single-threaded ownership for TA, but TA has a unique opportunity to be the drivers of adoption of this concept. So the problem, right? The problem is they're 97% are saying, hey, I'm interested and focused on this thing, but I don't know where to start, right? And so what we've really tried to do within Crosschq is simplify the process by which to start. Foundationally, to measure quality of hire, you need to do two things. You need to connect your hiring data. This is everything that kind of happened pre-hire. In simple terms, think about this as ATS-related data with outcome data. And again, in simple terms, think about this as HRIS-related data. This is where it all starts. But where historically this concept of quality of hire gets complicated is this whole question about how do we measure quality. So Crosschq has a whole bank and a team of IO members that help us put together sort of this whole methodology around how do we make it easy for companies to start to measure and analyze quality of hire. So we have 4 key pillars of quality measurement, right? And tenure is one key pillar, in-role performance is another, OCB, which is organizational citizenship behavior, is a third, and then self-development is the fourth. In each of these buckets, you have subjective measures and objective measures that an organization might want to consider as they're contemplating measuring quality. Let's just take a very simple example like tenure and employment status. Binary, is the employee still there or are they not still there, right? Term type, if they were gone, why were they let go? Think about some other things like in-role performance, and this is simple. Put your head around a high volume situation, attendance and punctuality. Did they show up on time, right? Did they show up at all? And then you can kind of get into more nuanced things around performance, around how they're matching with the culture, around how committed they are to self-development. But the key is we've made this platform really easy for the organization to ingest this data, to modify this data based upon how they view quality in their own organization. We know, right, that job A and job B and job C might look different. So we've kind of built these pre-built models for these organizations to measure quality of hire. We've also built the ability for them to customize it so it matches their own company. All right. So that was a lot of just talking at you, but I did just want to kind of lay the groundwork about how we've attacked this thing. The outcome of this, right, is that you get access to all these different visualizations and dashboards to help you start to operationalize and measure this whole quality of hire thing. And I want to just show you a little bit of the product as well. Chris, let me take a quick beat there. Any quick questions as I shift over to the demo itself?
No, we have 2 questions already, but let's go through this piece and we'll bring them in at the end.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so what you're looking at now, put yourself in the shoes of a Crosschq user. And within our Crosschq system, right, we have all these kind of pre-built dashboards. You can also customize all your own dashboards. You can mix and match things however you want to. And this is one of the things when I go back to why hiring intelligence is so important is unless you kind of connect dots between some of your core recruiting KPIs and some of these KPIs, right, you can't get to full insights. I often joke with folks that are talking about, time to hire as a core KPI. And I'm like, well, do you want it quick or do you want it slow? Because the data might show you that it's actually not correlative to high quality, right? The fast time to hire might actually be driving a decrease in quality. Nonetheless, the foundational kind of visualizations that our customers are getting, and this is kind of out of the box stuff, help me understand what's my quality of hire, help me look at that based upon different time periods, Usually companies organize around this idea of just a hiring class, just as a place to get started. But what quickly happens is you want to start to understand, right, how are my new hires performing? How many of my new hires are below expectations, above expectations? And as importantly, how does that correlate back to things I can act on? So what does it look like by department? What does that look like by who the recruiter was? What was the source of hire? And I'll go a little bit deeper on a handful of these, but there's a lot of cool stuff here just out of the gate when companies are getting oriented to this quality of hire question, and really where they need to get started. And we often say progress over perfection is, gosh, I just need a reliable way to measure this, right? I need a reliable way on demand to measure this and answer core questions about, how my quality of hire is trending. What's really cool is once we get past that phase, you start going deep. And I know we've heard from a lot of the partners around different pieces of this. So what I think is really cool is kind of we're able to sit on top of lots of them and ingest different data to help you optimize different components of recruiting operations. So think about sourcing optimization. Within Crosschq, you can actually see and stack rank, not just your fully loaded cost per hire, but your cost per quality hire. Imagine what the conversation changes with Indeed when you're actually able to go and show them, right? Yes, you made 6,000 hires last month from Indeed, but guess what? You had 74% turnover, and subsequently your cost per quality hire was 4 times what your cost per hire, what you perceived it to be. So this is all at your fingertips on demand. You're able to stack rank, your quality of hire based upon the source of hire and start to go really deep on that. We kind of take an approach with every aspect of the hiring flow. We want to give you an optimization set of dashboards that help you go deeper. So sourcing is an obvious one. Interviews is an obvious one. We have the ability to ingest scorecard data from your interviews, who was on the interview team, which interviewers are actually highly correlated to high quality hires. If Mike is always giving a 5, right, his input, frankly, in the selection process is not as important. If Jerry's consistently giving 2s and 3s and he gives a 5 and gets it right, we've got to weight that differently. We're also looking at the scorecards themselves to help you understand, are you actually evaluating the right things, and are those things correlative to quality? So you can kind of take this mindset. Once you have a baseline approach to measuring quality of hire, you can take this mindset against any piece of the puzzle. We do a lot of work against assessments, and we have a lot of customers that are assessment heavy, and they have real confusion about, is this assessment, we know it drives candidate drop off, especially in high volume. We know it doesn't increase candidate experience, NPS, it decreases it. Is it actually driving more quality? And most organizations are flying blind on this. So again, another good example where you're able to say, is my assessment actually working? I know that sounds like a simplistic question, but we have some data to say that so many of these assessments are not actually delivering on what you'd hope they would be delivering on. So I won't go all the way through it. You can kind of get a sense. One other thing I did want to focus on is skills and competencies. We're doing the same stuff here, where we're correlating actual outcome data with what you thought the skills and competencies were that were critical for success in that role. You're, as an example, right now looking at a sales dashboard for everything from a BDR to an AE to a sales director, and we're actually helping you understand, hey, guess what? These are the skills that are actually correlative with your high quality hires, not necessarily the skills that you got off of some skills matrix that somebody gave you. So anyway, there's a ton in here, and I know I went pretty quickly, but I did want to make sure everybody got their hands on it, could see it. And the idea, I'll go back to it. It's kind of this notion of progress over perfection, right? Let's get companies into this quality of hire mindset. Let's give them a repeatable and reliable way to measure it, and go from there.
Yeah, I mean, what I love is the fact that there is no standard for quality of hire. There's standard maybe about the way in which we go about deciding what that means in our company. And that is, I think, the point of confusion for the last few decades. People were looking for one answer to what quality of hire is, rather than a repeatable process by which I could determine what that quality of hire is for this company in this role.
You're right on. And Jerry, when we first came to market, we didn't appreciate that complexity enough, and we built a more rigid system, to be frank, right? Where we had kind of built some models off the shelf and didn't, but now we've appropriately built this thing so it's totally flexible. The organization can design by role, even by location, what the weighting is by those inputs, right? And this is where the machine learning is really fun. because you're actually able to process this data really quickly and help inform them of, guess what, this might be right, your weighting might be a little bit off on this. This might be the thing that's more correlative.
There's one other piece that I'd love to see more correlation around, and that is there's two decision points. One is the employer, who basically says, this is the person I want to select. And obviously you've got all of the pieces lined up, which you can see are either aligned or not aligned to quality of hire, which I think is a key issue. The second piece is the decision that the candidate makes, that not only can I do the job, but will I do the job? And somewhere in this process, it's important to ask the candidate post-hire, now the employee, did you have all the information you needed to make the best decision for you 3 months ago, 6 months ago? Because fundamentally inside of that, you could be deep sixing the quality of hire metric if the candidate is not contributing to a good decision.
For sure. No, and by the way, we have candidate feedback as part of an input into quality of hire too, which is an option for our customers. One thing, Jerry, that's fascinating about what you said is when we often talk about, look, TA didn't bring you an apple and they turned into an orange on day one, right? Like that's not what happened here. So, onboarding correlations, a lot of companies are pushing on that of like, I want to know who did the training. I really do. I want to understand the correlation between the onboarding experience and frankly, who was the actual trainer to, and start to understand time to productivity based upon that connectivity. So it's cool stuff once you start getting in, but like I keep hitting the progress over perfection. You got to commit to it. Let's go.
It's a great tool.
So our friend George LaRoque had just chimed in. He's got a question in the chat. Says, what kind of resources and skills would a TA team need to implement and manage a Crosschq?
Yeah, that's a great question, George. There's two different pieces of that. The implementation piece, right? That this is a data heavy product, and we have a bunch of APIs we built. We're really good at integrating data from native systems, but that's part of any integration with a system like that, our process for launching a system like that. So, having the resource to be able to start to ingest that data and that sort of thing is certainly a core piece of it. I think in terms of from a management perspective, I put it into two buckets. There's in phase one, this is a lot about process optimization. There's like the low hanging fruit stuff. And it really depends on which of those pieces the company is suffering the most pain on. If sourcing is a thing, if you're spending $10 million a year on sourcing and you're spending $8 million on Indeed, and you know that you now know that you have a problem there, and you need to adjust your marketing mix in order to, that's an immediately actionable thing. It might have a different cohort that's taking advantage of that data than a cohort that, let's just say on the assessment space, we have customers that are really heavy assessment companies and do not have the ability to connect those dots. And they really genuinely need to understand how those pieces are connecting. So it really does kind of go into a couple of buckets. One is process optimization, which is a function of depending on how the team is structured, who's kind of driving that type of thing. What I have seen emerge, especially in the enterprise, there's this transformation role that is becoming more and more popular. That tends to be an individual, right, that is taking control of this thing and saying, okay, now we're here, let's go fix some stuff, right? So I think that is an important cohort. But visibility helps too. I mean, part of the democratization of this data, the sharing tools that we've created, right, where recruiters can access this, it's one of those things. It does depend on who ultimately gets the incentive to get it right. Long-winded answer to your question, but as soon as recruiters are incentivized with quality of hire as a metric, you better be sure they're going to be users.
Well, the next couple of years will tell us. Yeah. Fitz, man, thank you so much for jumping in. Really grateful for the time you gave us today, and I love where this is going. This is good stuff.
Cool. Well, thank you all again for hosting.
Happy to have you, man. Appreciate it. All right, so we're going to bring in David. Jerry's going to do a loop. He will be back for social talent. And David coming back in. David, we're going to put you there in the spotlight. How are you, my man?
Chris, I'm doing well. I think if I had a hat on, I don't know that we would have known that Jerry left.
I was just going to say, I'm the only one without a beard now. So
previous to this, there was like a little progression. You could sort of look at Chris, and then you could look at Jerry, then you could look at me, and just see what happens when you let it go for a while.
There you go.
Oh man, I don't know what to say except, hey, let's dive right in.
Yeah, fair enough.
You've got some stuff you're going to walk us through. You ready for me to put that up for you?
Yeah, go right ahead. Let's throw the deck up. Yeah. So I wanted to take people through Talent Neuron. So many of you, I think, probably know us from days gone by, and part of what I was hoping to do today was give you a little level set on who the organization is today and what's changed with us a little bit. What challenges are we now solving on behalf of talent acquisition professionals? How do we see the role evolving in some of the more cutting edge clients that we're working with? And what are we doing, with the technologies that we're, producing to try to support that evolution? So with that in mind, let's see. If you could advance, how do I advance the screen here? Sorry.
Should just be in whatever you're presenting in. Yeah.
All right. Fair enough. Let me swing over there. All right. How's that? We going forward?
Yeah.
All right. Beautiful. Thank you, Chris. Technology. Love it. So, so for those of you that don't know, Talent Neuron's been around for quite a while. So, organizational history is now back many, many years. Started off as an individual organization, started up in India. Eventually were bought by CEB, eventually bought from CEB by Gartner. And 2 years ago, we spun out from Gartner to be our own individual company. Our mandate really is to be the world's leading provider of labor market intelligence. So what that means is we look at supply data, demand data, salary data, characteristics of the supply market in order to give organizations an understanding of what's going on in the external labor market. We think for many organizations, this is a bit of an unknown frontier. Organizations are pretty good, I think, at looking at the inside themselves and understanding what their internal metrics are. It's a little bit like having an old school GPS that did a really good job of figuring out how to get from A to B. But just as GPS has eventually evolved and you started to wonder about things like, is there an accident up ahead? Is there road work up ahead? What's traffic going to look like on Thursday morning at 5 p.m. when I'm going into the city as compared with what it looks like at 8 p.m. on a Saturday night? That external awareness of the sort of the landscape in which you're operating, I think, is becoming increasingly important from leading organizations as we're navigating an uncertain world and trying to figure out all the puts and takes on the availability of supply, increasing and changing nature of demand, and just kind of how all that fits together to drive not only talent acquisition strategies, but also big picture questions like build versus buy, thinking about site locations for situating an offshore, factory or an offshore center of excellence for software development or a shared services center or a new office, right? But also identifying trends and movement within competitors. What are competitors doing differently with regard to hiring? What are they doing with their EVP? And how are they evolving their EVP in general, but also in specific locations against, specific kinds of posts, right? How are skills evolving in the marketplace and what's changing in the nature of skills that are being requested for certain jobs? And what are, again, our competitors looking for in their posts and the way they're looking for skills? And again, how does the evolution of skills eventually play into a build versus buy, or maybe a halvesies kind of strategy where I buy some of the skills in the form of an acquisition, but I also build on those once someone comes internal, because otherwise I can't find anyone, right? So these are the kind of things that we help our clients try to solve, is really this ability to navigate that entire external landscape up against their internal needs and the way in which they think about that combined strategy between internal and external, and the way in which they navigate all of this external labor market data. We're in about 60% of the Fortune 100. We're proud to be a leading provider in just about every vertical or market segment that you can think of. So we're not just in high tech or the technology sector, consumer goods manufacturers, tech leaders, leading retailers, healthcare providers, financial institutions, consultancies. We're pretty much in every imaginable space that you can think of, with the kind of brands that, frankly, I'm thrilled to kind of serve on an ongoing basis. That said, a lot of our focus has been on the enterprise space in the last, I would call it decade or so. We've made some recent pivots to pricing and our overall packaging that make the kind of technologies that we develop for these Fortune sort of 2000 clients available in the mid-market as well. And I'll share a little bit about that in just a minute. In terms of scale, it's not just the size of the client base that we're, sort of proud of. It's also the amount of data in the system. So we have over 2 billion candidate profiles as the basis of our supply information. That's coming from government sources. It's coming from NGOs, trade associations, census data, surveys. It's also coming from profile data from places like LinkedIn, GitHub, Facebook, things like that. We have a skills library that's recently been updated. We're now up to around 35,000 skills. We're collecting about 761 million data points about job posts every single day. So we collect job posts from 40 different countries in 22 languages to the tune of about 1.3 to 3 million unique job posts per day. And then we apply 95 million AI-based predictions each day against those collected posts in order to generate insights that can tell us things like, is this job remote? Is it hybrid? Is this job on-prem? What skills are required? What's the nature of the EVP in this post? What kind of level does this job require, right? We take all that kind of data out, we turn all that unstructured data into structured data that then allows us to analyze all of that and come up with predictions about how difficult, what kind of skills evolution is happening in a given industry or across a given location, and really begin to provide insight to hiring professionals as well as other internal HCM professionals to make informed decisions against the labor market. So as we think about this overall space, we also are looking at salary data points. We're looking at historical data across 15 years. And our overall coverage is against about 91% of the global GDP. We're also do bespoke research. So with our research and sort of reporting teams, we're not just covering 40 countries. We can actually do research in other countries where we don't have direct coverage, where we've hitting around 110 different countries per year, with around 1,000 or ish custom research reports annually. So all of this sort of feeds into like an overall model, right? So we're taking in demand data, company data, supply data, country coverage, skills data. That's all part of our data harvesting layer. That goes into an extraction layer and a transformation layer where we do those predictions. That then feeds into a normalized data lake where we store over 33 terabytes of compressed data about the global labor market. And then on top of that, we then serve it up one of three ways. We can serve it up inside our SaaS platform, where you can access different kinds of modules, like a hiring analysis module, location analysis module, a skills analysis module. Or we can serve it up via APIs or data feeds if you have your own internal data lake. So if you have a data strategy where you're pushing everything into a Power BI instance or some kind of Tableau environment or something of that nature, we can actually push our data in alongside any other internal talent data that you might have or financial data in order for you to derive your own dashboards. Or we can serve it up inside of those research reports that I mentioned or consulting services, which we can also complement with secondary market research for data that might exist outside of our platform. And through that, we can do things like custom research, strategic consulting, different kinds of reports, that type of thing, right? So there's like three different consumption patterns. One is self-service, one is via DaaS model, and the third is via specific bespoke research and consulting. So what's different about us? There's a lot that's changed over the years. We've been away from Gartner now for almost a year and a half. We're closing in on that mark now. And we made some very significant changes since our separation from Gartner. So the first is when we used to sell our packages, Chris, it was basically, it was all or nothing. You'd get the entire platform. You'd have to buy entire country coverages at once. So candidly, it was pretty pricey. It was really aimed at that Fortune 2000 kind of market. One of the things we did late last year is we broke it all apart. And so now you can buy each module individually at a much lower price point. You can buy things at an individual country level. You can choose to buy individual reports, or you could even buy strategic consulting as a standalone offering in the absence of the platform. So we've really tried to realign and adjust the packaging to fit where the market is and what our clients need, and really meet clients where they are. And also to open this kind of capability to folks that are in the mid-market. So instead of having to drop $100,000, for a solution of this kind, you can buy just the hiring analysis module, for example, for a price point that's closer to 25 or 30 grand, more in line with what a mid-market, acquisition of a technology like this might look like. And it was really to open that market to us, but also to give this kind of capability to a broader swath of organizations. We also, as I mentioned, launched strategic consulting as a standalone offering, which is new for us. It used to be embedded in everything else we did. Now that can be purchased separately. We've also deepened our global coverage. So we're now in 40 different countries, in 22 different languages, with demand data, supply data, and salary data. We're continuing to extend that over the next couple of years. By the end of this year, we'll be at 42 countries. We expect to be closer to 50 countries by the end of next year. And then lastly, we've done a lot of new product innovation and strategic partnerships. So there's a couple partnerships that are coming up that I'll talk to. But on the innovation side, we've launched a couple of new offerings, one of which is the EVP module. And upcoming this summer, we're launching a candidate profile capability to complement hiring analysis. And we're also launching a chatbot capability to support your ability to navigate the hiring analysis module. So with that in mind, I thought I'd talk a little bit about some of the challenges that we're solving for clients and then give you a couple of screenshots so you can kind of see how this stuff fits together. So at a labor and market, competitive intelligence perspective, we're solving for who your talent competitors are. It's interesting, when you ask organizations who their competitors are, they often know from a business standpoint who they're fighting with. They don't often have a clear picture who they're fighting for when it comes to the talent and where they're fighting against whom. It's different in different parts of the world. It's different by different roles. We can help organizations have a really clear picture of who their talent competitors are. We also can help with, where and who and, how their competitors are hiring. Where are the competitors hiring? What skills are they hiring for? What locations are they hiring in? What kind of jobs are they hiring for? And what does that look like in a trended way to get a clearer picture of what the overall competitive market looks like? From a strategic workforce planning perspective, we can start to show a picture of demand and supply over time and help to give a better, more nuanced picture of build versus buy, or even borrow and bought, in order to understand what the right strategy is in a given location and the way that you might think about skills planning or actual hiring strategies in a given area. And then lastly, when it comes to strategic talent acquisition, we're really helping organizations think through how they hire high quality talent for less based on location strategy. So I call it wage arbitrage, right? A classic example will be, if I'm trying to hire tech talent, am I trying to hire in Austin or Boston? Or can I just hire in Chattanooga? If I hire in Chattanooga, there's about a 30% reduction in cost out of the gate because of cost of living differences. Even more so, of course, if you're going to hire in, Bangalore or some other place. We have a very clear picture of talent supply, talent demand, but also cost in those locations, and even DEI characteristics if you're trying to connect all the dots to make an informed decision about where best to hire against different locations, right? That also can tell you, will that give me advantage in hiring faster? Because if the supply and demand ratio is upside down, then it might be really difficult to hire in a given location. If it's right sized up, it might be a little bit easier. We can also help folks identify where there might be pools of hidden talent in certain parts of the world, in certain MSAs or locations that enable us to take advantage of talent inequity and the presence or absence of different kinds of talent pools that can help us hire more effectively. So I've covered kind of the basics of the key talent challenges. What I thought I'd do is just how does all this fit together for a talent acquisition professional? And there's a few key modules that we offer that really start to help with the recruiter's key job, right? One of those is a hiring analysis module. I'll show you what that looks like in a minute. And basically what that does is it gives you the ability to see talent supply, demand, salary, average time to fill in a given location. And it also gives you the ability to see the cost of that talent in a given location. So you can start to really understand and communicate from a talent calibration perspective and level set from an expectations perspective with your hiring manager. What's real? What's the reality on the ground, so to speak? So when they're looking for a purple unicorn, you can help move them in more the direction of looking for, specific individual talent and, looking for horses instead of for the unicorns that they sometimes ask for, right? We also can do things with employer value proposition analysis. We can do things with candidate profiles, that chatbot I mentioned, And then, as I shared, location analysis, competitor analysis, and overall trend kind of data. So what we see changing, right, is when we talk to some of our cutting edge clients, you know, we're seeing a reactive kind of strategy. Needs of the hiring managers really trying to come at them after the fact, coming at them with more proactive, greater awareness of market conditions, and rather than trying to source something for days against an impossible set of skill combinations and experience combinations, you can see immediately how that's going to be, what that's going to be in terms of time to fill, what the hiring difficulty score is, etc. If you look on the right, you can see we need a difficulty score. We can recommend alternate locations to find similar talent. We can give you why the hiring difficulty score is what it is, which could tell you it's because of supply issues or competition or what the overall competitiveness is.
Hooray, live. Looks like David.
We've done 16 of these today, and this is the first time this has happened.
Oh, that's pretty good. Well, hopefully he can dial back in. Yeah, I have to say, we get a couple minutes left, and I'll just share, Barb. So when I was a practitioner, like this was, and I was fortunate enough to be in an organization who had the budget for it. This was a secret weapon for recruiting.
Yeah, I can believe it. I was just going to mention, and I was going to ask him this, but we'll just talk about it on our own. We hear Talent Neuron mentioned a lot at our meetings. I feel like since they have broken off from Gartner, it's almost like it's not all new offerings, but it feels like it's an all new offering.
There we go. David came back to close us out.
Am I back? All right, perfect. What happened? Was I talking to dead air? Was it just me talking to myself?
No, for like a half a minute. We just lost you for a half a minute. We tried to talk to you the whole time.
So so I had prepared a couple of screenshots, but we're probably at time. So I'll summarize by saying, at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is facilitate a shift in really arming the folks on the recruiting side with real market data, so that when the hiring managers are coming at you with these impossible, requests for 17 skills, 2 different languages. I've also been to the moon once in my life, right? We can tell you like how much supply really meets that characteristic, how hard that's going to be to fill, what the difficulty score is, and then recommend, alternate lists of skills, alternate titles to look for, alternate locations to look for that kind of that talent. And then eventually what's coming out later this year is even the ability to then find candidates that meet those criteria with a candidate sourcing module. So we're trying to create like a little bit of a one-stop shop for you as a hiring and recruiting specialist to really have those informed conversations with the hiring managers in a way that makes you the expert and less responsive and more proactive in that approach.
Yeah, I'll ask one. Oh, go ahead. I'll ask one question just to close this out. And David, I don't know if you heard me or not, but I was telling Chris that I feel like you almost feel like you're a whole new product with all these different offerings that you now break out. How's it being received by people? We lost him again.
All right. Well, we're gonna let Dave. I'm gonna assume really well because I got excited about it.
I would hope so. I was just curious to see, a little bit about that. What's next? But that's all right. We've got one more. We got a grand finale coming up.
We do big finale, and we're gonna bring in the hat with the beard. There he is, Mr. Crispin. Welcome back.
Yeah.
And of course, in the spotlight today, Mr. Johnny Campbell. Johnny, how are you?
Hey, folks. I can't bring a beard. I can't bring a hat, but I do have a rum and coke. Well, it's empty now.
We should have poured wine for the last one.
Yeah.
You should have.
We can take 2 minutes. Fill your glass. It's good.
Okay.
So, Johnny, what do you got for us today?
So, what I thought I'd do, Chris and Barb and Jerry, is kind of give everyone a kind of quick run through of social talent. Hopefully, a lot of your audience know us. Many might not, might be new to us. Many may think they know us from before and not fully aware of the offering. Jump into a bit of a demo, and then maybe just talk about bit of a case study of one of our customers and what they've learned, which I think has tons of insights for everyone. And then we do some Q&A along the way. That sound good?
Love it.
I promise we'll be done on time. We'll get everyone off this. I'm blown away, by the way. I've been dipping in and out and just fascinated by all the different folks who have been joining, all the different content, and it really excites me, to be honest with you, about the amount of different offerings that are available, the amount of different ways you can be excellent, right? And that's what I'm going to probably dig into, is kind of this concept that I'm passionate about, which is hiring excellence, which is kind of why we started the business and what we focus on. So we work with, a bit like David, largely large enterprises who are looking to solve hiring on scale, through learning and enabling their teams to be better. Why large enterprises? Well, sometimes very small teams can do it with just somebody smart in the team. It's a little bit more organic. When you got a team that are dispersed across the world, doing lots of different hiring and recruiting, it's very hard to standardize that and scale that. And that's where we've kind of, I guess, by accident become a little bit more expert in helping those large organizations do that. We work across multiple industries, helping these organizations across the world to kind of drive that hiring excellence. And that's what they all share in common, is this desire to do hiring really, really well. But I kind of need to break down what that is, because there's specific language that we use, and it's very purposeful, because as a recruiter, I'm an ex-recruiter, and I speak to a lot of folks who are excellent at recruiting, but being great at hiring, I say, is different to being great at recruiting, because recruiting is something that the recruiting team do, the TA team do, but hiring is something the organization does. So when we look at hiring excellence, it's about the alignment of all the different stakeholders involved in hiring to make sure that there's nothing left to chance. So you've got great recruiters, that's recruiting excellence. You've got great interviewing excellence, so it's the interviewers, hiring managers, but also the candidates. How do you make sure you empower the candidates? So you've got those, three parties, if you like: the professional recruiters, the hiring team, and the candidates, and making sure that everyone there is aligned with the best resources, knowledge, to make sure the interview process achieves excellence, right? That we hire great people for great jobs consistently across the business. So a lot of us know with the recruiter side, Social Talent made its name in terms of recruiter training, in terms of initially sourcing training that I would have delivered, but today is largely delivered by Glenn Cathy, who was my hero when I started. So I'm so proud to have Glenn deliver that training, finally getting rid of me for better training. And we kind of make those recruiters really excellent at what they do. So that could be sourcing, candidate experience, being a better talent advisor, AI in recruiting, newer topics, candidate experience. And we find that teams are in different places. A lot of teams are maybe less mature, maybe they're 360-degree recruiters. They haven't broken out into different candidate-facing, business-facing roles. They don't have specialisms. They're still building that expertise. Others are super efficient, and they're looking to just make that consistent across the business. So, we cater for all different types of teams and skills within that in terms of those areas. But we're trying to make those recruiters really, really excellent at their job, right? And we do that with tons of organizations. Nokia, one of our customers, we've been working with their TA team for many, many years, nearly 100,000 employees, again, across the world. They don't make phones anymore, just to be clear. But they wanted to create this kind of world-class candidate experience, because they're competing for really, really hard to find tech talent against lots of other businesses. So we worked with their TA team to drive that. They worked through a lot of courses, a lot of certification going on across that team over the last couple of years, are really driving better results in terms of their recruiting satisfaction with hiring managers and everything else. But that recruiting piece on its own, you can have an amazing TA team, and I think all three of you know this. But if you do not have an equally impressive and aligned hiring team with your interviewers, your hiring managers, your HRBPs, it all falls apart, right? It's not good enough to just have good recruiters. So we see a lot of customers who mature, if you like, from having a solid, really good recruiting team to saying, well, we have other stakeholders involved here. We need to get them aligned, more professional, consistent hiring standards, processes across the business. And then we really come in on the enablement of that to kind of upskill the hiring managers and the interviewers in that. And not doing that, which is what a lot of folks still have in place, leads to great recruiters passing on the candidate to hiring teams who just aren't doing it right, who are having a chat, who are being inconsistent, exposing the organization to legal risk, right? And there's real challenges here, and it really frustrates me, because these folks, to be fair, they're not doing this every day of the week, right? Recruiters are doing this every day of the week. But a hiring manager might hire 5 people a year, 1 person a year, and they do it in a very inconsistent way and let the side down. They bring a lot of bias to the table often, and they just don't make the right hiring decisions, and often miss great talent as well, or put off great talent. So we worked with John, who I know all of you know, John Vasilika. John, originally worked in Amazon as Jeff Bezos, one of Jeff Bezos' original TA leaders in the original days of Amazon, developed the hiring bar philosophy for Amazon, worked in lots of TA organizations, and he's just really passionate with great stories. And he's one of our core presenters who delivers on that kind of interview training, along with his team, fantastic team in Recruiting Toolbox. And they help hiring managers understand, recruiting, and interviewers understand recruiting, and really scale that consistency across the business, right? Bringing that alignment to the hiring team as well as the recruiters. And it's all from the same kind of core group of knowledge that's super consistent. So like Cisco, one of our customers who do this really well. Most people probably know Cisco, big organization, 83,000 employees all over the world. Again, like most organizations, really grew their recruiting team out of COVID, but their hiring managers and interviewers just weren't up to scratch, weren't delivering to the same level of the recruiting team. So we've deployed over the last couple of years to 40,000 different hiring managers and interviewers, certified more than 30,000 of them per year, and super kind of feedback in terms of just the quality of interviewing, people really empowered to do this really well. And we're talking like an hour, 2 hours, at the longest 3-hour programs for those folks if they're in high volume or very technical recruiting. So you can have a real impact with that very precise training in how do you do interviewing, how do you be a better hiring manager, how do you focus on not just interviewing, but being more inclusive, selling to candidates as well. And for a lot of folks, they think that's it. That's the holy grail. You've empowered your recruiters, you've empowered your hiring team. But about a year and a half ago, I began talking to some of our more mature customers again. And they were consistently coming up with this challenge where it actually initially started from internal mobility. We're looking at internal talent who are often disadvantaged because they haven't, by definition, been interviewing for many years. And they come into an interview process with all the skills and development, but they can't communicate it. And we see the same for marginalized talent, who underrepresented talent, who maybe just don't have the career coaching experience that others have. They haven't done 100 interviews, and they're not having the opportunity to present themselves. And we all know that in an interview, it's not just about your skills, it's how you present that in the interview. And presenting in an interview may not be a skill requirement for the job, but it is a kind of skill requirement to persuade or influence the hiring manager or an interviewer or a recruiter that you're capable. So late last year, we developed this kind of third part of our platform, which is empowering candidates. So teaching them about interview prep skills, career coaching skills, career development skills. And we do that heavily branded by the customer. And it's very popular with all of our consumer brands business, because when they are invited for an interview, they're sent a link to Social Talent where they have a kind of condensed candidate version of our training, which trains them to prepare for the type of interview we've trained that whole organization on, but also includes employer branding material about that company, their culture, and really just gives that person the ability to prepare for that interview. But not just that interview, to prepare for any interview. And we have content that if they're declined, we can give them more training for how do you basically deal with the rejection, how do you find your next job, how do you basically go back and update your resume, your LinkedIn profile. So really kind of on scale, giving value back to the candidates to drive that candidate experience, but also the equity piece in terms of, as I said, underrepresented candidates just aren't getting that support elsewhere. So that's kind of where we're trying to, derive that excellence, not just for recruiters, not just for interviewers and hiring managers, but also for those candidates who just don't necessarily have that consistent access. We see lots of candidates not making it past the interview, not because they're not capable, but just because they're not experienced at interviewing, haven't been given the advice. Like I came from staffing, where we would put the effort in to train every candidate, but corporate TA teams just don't have the resources, particularly in the last year with cutbacks in those teams, to do that on the scale. So we're kind of stepping in to do that for the candidates and make them prepared, align them with everyone else in the process, and really improve that candidate experience. So that's kind of when you look at hiring excellence. That's kind of where we look at it. And I'll give you a quick look at for those who haven't seen the platform. I'm often asked, but what does it look like? Give me a quick view. So I'll just add in here. Let me just show you here a screen share of what the platform looks like. So going into, here we go. This is the platform for a user. So very simply, whether this is more a recruiter user, but a hiring manager user would have maybe a slightly stripped down version of it. A candidate would have it much stripped down, but branded by the employer version of this platform. But it's all guided around your learning. So that's in the middle of doing this training, I might be doing, how do you basically deal with hiring managers who just want to see more resumes, or how do I basically deal with hiring managers who are too busy to recruit, or real specific training from each of those great experts, right? And you kind of have, gamification and badges and points, a video library you can jump out of, explore and search. So just tons of kind of easy access from a learning perspective, not looking like an LMS for the user. But then on the back end for the admin, huge amount of functionality for creating user groups, teams, deploying different settings, 7 different languages that the platform's in. There's transcriptions for all the different courses in different languages for candidates, or for employees and candidates around the world. Again, as I mentioned, lots of kind of branding options for bespoking it. So it's a real kind of enterprise great platform that adds all that kind of customization that you'd want, security, SSO. And on the hiring manager side, for example, we integrate with a bunch of different LMSs and LXPs, so your team aren't having to be onboarded to a brand new system. We integrate the reporting back in there. We're integrating the candidate experience piece into the ATS and CRM, so you're capturing the kind of flow of who's done the training, who hasn't, in that candidate flow. So a lot of sophisticated stuff you can do there, but you can start with a team of 10 and you can just give them an app and get them learning the same day. I had one of experience area today, actually, where we were launching to a US based bank and their TA team. And I was doing a live broadcast, and someone in the question time put up her hand and said, "Are you the same guy who did the sourcing training with the ninjas 10 years ago?" And I was like, yeah. And she was like, she goes, "You taught me to be a recruiter. I got my first job because I watched your free videos." And to me, it just shows the power of, you have an eager person who just absorbs this knowledge, and you can do anything. You develop a whole career, right? You can be better at selecting talent for your team. You can get your next job, right? So we've seen the power of scale learning. And we're doing more stuff in the future with kind of AI simulations and a bunch of stuff as well that we're launching in September. But I said I'd tell one story, and I might just go back and talk about very quickly one of our customers, Accenture. Tom Sayer, who's their head of candidate experience, was sharing with me some of their amazing data around what they do as a team. And they're a huge business, hire 200,000 people a year, right? So for most of us, we're just never think of hiring in that scale. But the team in Accenture, if I jump in here, so they kind of 700,000 person organization, millions of applicants every single year. I'll jump ahead here. This is kind of their scorecard, and they monitor everything, from candidate experience, every step. I know, Jerry, from the Candy's perspective, you'd love the granularity of their data. They question people at multiple stages in the process, on multiple questions, and aggregate that data across the world and skin it different ways. They do the same for hiring managers. They do the same for recruiters, employee referrals, tons of data. And they were sharing with me what they learned was that, you can have reds in lots of places. And their initial approach was, let's fix the reds, right? These things are red, let's fix them. But when they did that, they found that the overall candidate experience didn't necessarily change, even when they fixed what they called these potholes, which was interesting. Like, they'd improve the apply process, or they'd change the career site. A lot of those technical things we spend money on. But candidates, it seemed, were appreciative of the change, but it didn't really change their overall experience. But what they found was, what did make a difference, in fact, the only things that made a difference, were the touch points with people. If you could elevate an experience with a recruiter, an interviewer, a hiring manager, or a coordinator, the candidate experience had impact was massive. And so they doubled down on this enablement, piece based on that data, right? Which was trying to drive this creation of what they called initially the recruitment professional credential, which is, powered by social talent, but actually contains about 50-60% content of Accenture's own processes, other third-party material just housed in our platform, along with our kind of best practice from the external market. So that blending of the internal and the external built this credential to really upskill their own folks on this. And they've moved on to interview training there for hiring managers, and looking at the candidate side as well next. So I just thought it was really insightful that with that amount of data, the data said, do you know what, elevate the people to people experiences, particularly when we're all talking about AI. But I think the role of AI there is that use AI to do all that admin, all that work that isn't, a recruiter or a hiring manager or an interviewer dealing with a candidate. So they have more time to do that work that the data proves is the stuff that really matters in that experience.
I love it.
Oh,
Johnny,
sorry, I didn't want to step on Jerry. Sorry.
so we're all just blown away.
Not too tired.
Johnny, yeah, that's right. I love the sort of the full circle, like the bringing in the candidates into the whole training process as well. Curious, is there any subject or any piece of your training that you really see taking off right now that a lot of organizations are really latching onto?
It's funny. It depends on the maturity of the organization. So we see a lot of teams that are really, embracing this for the first time are still back at, how do you become a talent business partner or talent advisor, right? Which is a 20-year-old concept. But I think it's probably still only 20-25% of teams who kind of have that or embrace that philosophy. So that's still hugely popular with recruiters. But we have a lot of mature teams, particularly, it indexes more towards the tech teams who kind of have always led here. And they're doing what we call kind of more a talent business partner versus a talent acquisition business partner, where they're leaning into how do you derive more than TA advice or acquisition advice? How do you support on skilling? What does retraining and enablement look like in terms of helping the hiring manager, not just with hiring, but also like, I need people to do stuff, or I need actually more importantly, I need an outcome, more sales, more innovation, more R&D. So they're kind of bringing in skills as recruiters that are about not just how do you acquire new talent, but maybe how you move folks around, retrain some of the team. So that's a big growth area we've seen in the last year for the more mature teams. They're pushing the role of a recruiter really into new boundaries, into broader talent, which I think is super interesting. But sourcing, for example, sourcing's have taken a whole new leap, because sourcing used to be all around Boolean search. It's not. Like, you've got cool tools like Talent Neuron and others that do all the work for you. So now it's about your human interaction. Like the Glenn Cathy training is less about Boolean. Glenn came along and said, I want to talk about how you reach out to people, how do you engage them, how do you get them over the line? Because that's what a sourcer needs to learn these days. So definitely swing towards the soft skills there, Barb.
And I like the whole focus on internal movement, teaching folks how to interview, for example, within the company itself. And that raises the idea of mentoring capabilities of the hiring manager beyond, obviously, the hiring process. So I think there's a whole host of things that I certainly can see social talent demonstrating and capabilities around.
Yeah, you're dead right there. Dead right. Like, you think about, if you're going to basically hire for more skills than experience, then the hiring team needs to be better at coaching. So you kind of look and go, it's not just as simple as saying, hire for skills. Well, okay, I'm hiring for skills, less experience and qualifications, but how do I coach that person to get the experience? Because maybe I've never had to do that before, and I don't have the in-house resources. So you got to be able to provide the full complement of knowledge, not just the kind of point solution around recruiting, so to speak.
Yeah, I love it. Look, I will just say it. Johnny, I don't know a better resource. I mean, you mentioned Glenn Cathy, you mentioned John Vlastelica, like the content that sits inside of that platform, we are constantly recommending. I just don't know another platform that delivers it the way that it does, with the talent embedded in it and ready to go. There's no better storyteller than John in our space. Glenn knows more about, has forgotten more about, diversity, recruitment, and of course, search and sourcing than most of us will ever learn. Yeah. And it's just always impressive when you're bringing in new talent and these trainers, and it's just been an amazing thing to sort of watch evolve over the last number of years.
Oh, it's amazing. And we've got great talent. You've got Bev Kay talking about internal mobility. You've got Joanna Abayi in the UK, who was honored by the Queen before her death in terms of their work on diversity in the UK that she's doing around some of that training. There's just so many folks, more than 100 folks. And, you all know better that there's tons of brilliant minds out there. It's just finding them, putting them in your pocket so you have them at your fingertips whenever you need them.
You're doing good work.
Thanks, folks. Listen, this is great, and I've loved this. Thanks to everyone who's come on as well today. This has been wonderful. I think it's a great job. I'm hoping to see more of this. It's been a really great opportunity to showcase those vendors in 20 minutes.
Well, thanks for jumping in, Johnny. It's good to see you, and we appreciate you taking us out today. Thank you.
Go have a drink. Fill those glasses, folks. All right. Well done. Hey, everyone.
Take care.
Bye.
All right, I think we've got, just really quickly, so we'll wrap that up and put the URL on the screen. I want to thank everybody who gave us some time today. I think we've had some people with us most of the day today. I want to give each of you a chance really quickly. Wayne, what did you think of this? Should we do it again? TBD?
I think we should definitely do it. I think we should definitely do it again. I got to tell you, from client stories, like getting to hear like the actual people using the products, from getting to see brand new stuff in some cases, like Findem, like today, new stuff. I thought it was a real fun way to get some quick hits and some insights into a lot of different people.
I'm shocked that more did not go wrong.
Ever the optimist. Yeah.
I think it was a really well-designed day. I think one of the questions that I think we all wanted to ask is 20 minutes. Are we capable in 20 minutes of having, something meaningful, take place that's a takeaway? And the answer to that question is yes. When push comes to shove, they can say a lot of stuff in 20 minutes.
I think we had an excellent selection of folks that came in today, and I appreciated everybody who showed up in the chat. I think it was a wonderful day. It's a good way to spend the day.
I think building a short list of folks, though, who are committed to the industry, I think is part of the formula that we need to continue.
I would agree with that. Look, if you're hanging, oh wait, we did have a comment there. If you are hanging in there with us, let's see what we've got. A lot went right, thanks to all. I'll take it. I'll take what went right. I love that. One final thing, I'll just leave you with this. Videos are going to be available in the CXR library. Don't worry, we're going to cut these up into 18 segments, so you won't have to be scrolling and scrubbing through that, and we'll make sure that that's in there. We're super appreciative of everybody joining. Learning more about Career Crossroads at cxr.works, where you can also visit the Solutions Marketplace. You can search, shop, and now anybody can rate those nearly 500 TA vendors. That is open. And don't worry, you can toggle on and off if they are verified members, verified ratings, or folks who have logged in to do that. You can invite your favorite business partners or solutions as well, and build custom lists, which is a neat new feature. Getting ready to go to a conference, this is a great way for you to make a list of everybody you want to make sure that you see there. And it's also a fantastic way, once you've added a couple ratings in there, to connect with the community. With that, I think we're done.
Woohoo, we can get off camera.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.